Tishy boy,
Hey, mate.
how are you?
It's been a while.
How's university going?
It's going all right. 2 years into my degree now. Out
Really?
Of 7.
You're straight out of school.
Straight out of school. No gap year, nothing. But I'd say that these first 2 years have definitely been pretty on the relaxing side rather than the academic side.
Yep.
So, yeah, how about you, mate?
What are you doing? Are you doing you're doing medicine and mathematics?
So I'm doing medicine at UQ. That's what I applied for out of school.
Yeah.
But they're kind of switching over to the American system now. So Melbourne, Sydney, UQ,
Yeah.
they all have the you have to do a pre-med degree, which is like just an undergrad, and then you go post-grad medicine rather than a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, which
Yep.
other unis do, you know? So it's a year longer,
Yeah.
but I didn't mind it. I'm like, I like the opportunity to do something else and
So
give it a crack.
So you're doing pre-med and
So pre-med, my undergraduate degree is in maths,
yep.
and then Doctor of Medicine 4 years onto that. So
Nice.
yeah, that's not a common reaction, dude. I see people's faces fucking drop as soon as I soon as I say
Wow.
that. Yeah, 7 years at uni, but I say to people, I'm like, it's just kicking the can down the road. I'm like, don't need to join the workforce for a while
No, of
and
course
chill
not.
out, be
Nah,
a kid,
it's
be a
chill,
kid for a
man.
bit longer, dude.
Dude,
Oh.
everyone I talk to that's out of uni says they miss the uni days so much.
Yeah, and the people who didn't go to uni say they miss school. It's always the case. It's like you miss being a kid. It's like these are the times where you can chill out. You know what? I don't really want to work a 9 to 5 all the time. You know, so
Nah.
but yeah,
So what's the goal through that degree?
I'd say
Surgery.
a career in medicine. I haven't fully narrowed it down. I think surgery is appealing for a lot of reasons.
Why?
The paycheck's pretty good. You're not gonna lie. Yeah, but I'd say you'd be foolish to choose to be a surgeon just for that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do straight out of high school. Like that's a big motivator. I guess in some way, like you can always argue that like money is how much you're valued to someone, right? How much you're getting paid. Well, it's the best quantifier we've got.
Yeah.
But I think it was really a process of elimination. I cut some other stuff out, which I'm like, I definitely, my skill set won't allow me to succeed in these sort of fields, or maybe not allow me, but doesn't give you the best chance.
Yeah.
I really liked maths in school, so it's like going down the medicine pathways like is in a way cutting that out. But that's why I'm so glad that I get to do my undergrad in maths.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, surgery is very appealing. Yeah.
I had a conversation with my friend Callum yesterday, and we're talking about mathematics. And I remember in school, we would always be like, why would anyone want to do mathematics?
Yeah.
It seems like the worst thing ever. But he was saying that he loves mathematics. And I asked him whether it was like poetry to him, like art.
Okay.
Do you feel that at all? Like, do you like mathematics in that sense?
Yeah.
Where it's just like when everything clicks, when you get the answer, it's just so fulfilling.
I think maths is beautiful. Maths is oddly creative.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the times in school, there's not a distinction made between mathematics and computation. You know, calculation. That's not truly what mathematics is, and I think that's what your mate was kind of alluding at. There's a difference between being a calculator and being able to do mental arithmetic quickly in your head versus being able to solve mathematical problems. I think that requires a certain level of creativity that people underestimate. And in terms of like the value of mathematics, I don't think like a lot of it is valuable. A lot of mathematics is applied in everyday life. I'm sure teachers say that all the time. It's just we often can't see it because it's the level of complexity is so high that you have to do years and years and years until you truly see how this applies like day to day, you know?
Right.
But yeah.
It's tough to comprehend for someone in year 12 or like year 11 to see what benefit math would have.
It is. It's a common thing. It's like you're trying to see the big picture when you've only seen so little, right? It's like, but yeah, I think there's a lot of creativity involved. There's a lot of imagination, and I don't know. I find that very interesting and beautiful. So in a way, it is like an art form.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Because that's like me at the moment with chess. I love chess.
Yeah.
And when I see a game, you know, like mid-game, the pieces are formed out and someone's making their move, it's just like poetry to me. It's like artwork. Like I can just see it and it's just right. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I'm a big chess fan as well.
Such a beautiful game.
Who's your favorite player? Do you have one or?
Dude, it has to be Well, all right. It has to be Magnus.
Magnus, yeah,
But
okay.
if we're talking, like, I watch a lot of YouTube chess as well.
Yeah.
Which is completely lame. But
Yeah.
I like Eric Rosen. Have you seen him on
No,
YouTube?
I haven't. I'm not a big YouTube chess guy,
He's a
but
gun.
yeah.
Man, but it's incomprehensible. Well, first of all, it's just so funny how you have 40-year-old sophisticated, smart men that could have done anything with their brain.
Extreme IQ. Yeah.
Dedicate their life to a board game. Like, that's just,
I know.
it's mind baffling.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
And
yeah.
then the distinction between a bad player, an average player, a good player, a great player, and then a grandmaster is just absurd. Like, I would consider myself good, but that's because I play with my uni roommates and my friends at the moment.
Yeah.
And I just like either crush them or, beat them quite easily.
Yeah.
But if I were to verse a 2000 rated plus player, it's light and day.
Oh, no, for sure. I definitely sat in Darwin thinking I was pretty good. Like, you'd play with your mates at school and stuff, and like you'd be able to win. And then there'd be these little, like, where in Darwin, it's a smaller scale, right? So like you're in school and there's a little tournament here and there, and like you go and win a few games. But then going off to uni, you see the guys who really have they've got some of the theory down as well, because a lot of it is creativity, like you said, and it's beautiful. But a lot of it's theory. The amount of memory that you need for chess and remembering all the openings, remembering like common patterns, and that's why to kind of go off on a tangent here, I think it correlates with IQ quite highly. Good chess players have a very high IQ.
Yep.
And the reason is because IQ is a gauge of pattern recognition and memory. And I think chess fundamentally falls into that as well.
Yeah.
But so I've gone down to uni and I've met a couple of my mates who are absolute guns from my point of view.
Yeah.
I think they'd be 2000 rated on
Really?
chess.com.
Wow.
Yeah. One of them was even a bit higher, but he's focusing on uni.
Yep.
So it's like, I think if you really want to excel in chess, you've got to take it like a full-time job.
Yep.
So yeah.
Oh, dude, it's unbelievable. Like, I had a period a few months ago where I was like consistently playing and a lot. I was almost addicted against players online, and I could feel myself gradually getting better, but like only by the tiniest of increments.
Yeah, okay.
And then I'd have a week off, or like a week or two off, and then try again, and it wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, it just
It's
wouldn't click for you.
No,
Right. Yeah,
no.
no,
You
fair
have
enough.
to really treat it like a full-time job.
Yeah.
But one of my life goals is to become a grandmaster. But
You're joking. Is it actually?
100%. Do you know how cool
No,
that
it
would be?
would be
Just
cool,
to
yeah.
walk down the street and be like, I'm a grandmaster at chess.
It is a flex. It is
Man.
a flex, yeah.
And then you just get instant
I
genius
never thought
level.
I never thought you'd say that. I never thought that was
Dude.
that was on the cards for you ads, but go for it, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, it started when I went to India, and me and my grandpa would always play chess.
Yeah.
And he would demolish me when I was young, and then when I started getting older, I started competing more.
Yeah.
And yeah, my want to play chess consistently came from the urge of beating him when I go back to India.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Because I don't know what his rating is. Like, he doesn't play online.
Yeah.
But he's just a gun.
Okay.
What are you rated?
So I haven't played in ages, but I think classical rating so I played on Lee Chess most of the time.
Right. And that gives you a higher rating.
It gives you a higher rating.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but I think the chess.com conversion, I would have been like 1500 was my maximum rating.
Nice.
Which is not bad.
My highest one was 1460 or something like that.
pretty good,
So
yeah.
we're pretty similar.
Well, mate, we should have a game.
Dude,
Pull the
100%.
chessboard out. Nah.
Last time we played online, you had to go because you had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
That was a good game, though.
It was a good game. It was tight. It was tight. I think I blundered a piece early in the game,
Yeah, you
but then
did.
I kind of worked my way back.
I
and
was
then
on the back foot. in the end.
you're on the back foot. But
Because playing with my mates in uni, it's just some people don't understand. I mean, fair enough, you don't understand,
Yeah.
but we would play, and we were similar rated, me and my friend Harry, and after the game, like there was no time limit.
okay.
So we would just be sitting there like this, like that, and we would take about 20 minutes a turn or like 10 minutes a turn, just ridiculous. And we'd sit there and we'd go and wander off while the other person thinks, and the games would go for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, like just ridiculous amounts of time to be sitting there thinking. And then at the end we'd analyze.
Yeah.
We'd be like, oh, what about D6? What about pawn F4 or whatever? And like the analysis post game would be 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Put it in a computer, or would you just you
Nah,
just gonna do it
we would just say,
yourself?
we would just be like, well, I would have been more frightened if you made this move middle game, or you should have put rook to d7 or something this
good.
game. But those were the funnest times, man. You know, chess players in tournaments, this is crazy to think, when they have long haul games, they lose so much weight during the game because their mind is just operating at insane.
I saw that in a podcast, I think, somewhere.
Yeah.
But it was
you
like,
wouldn't believe it.
It was crazy. It was like 5,000 calories or something ridiculous, which
just
is like
from
twice,
sitting down.
Just from sitting down, and working your mind. It's like, that's crazy. But no, it definitely does make sense. I thought it was one of those things that I'd search it up and it would be like an urban myth or something like that.
Right, the weight loss.
But I think
something chess players say to make themselves sound cooler.
Yeah. But if you look at them though, if you look at them though, they're all wiry and skinny. Like every chess player is like skinny as fuck.
They don't need any. They don't need any weight loss.
No, they don't. But I think it might be a product of them playing that all the time and maybe not going outside enough.
Probably, bro.
But
But you think of the type of player that would become a grandmaster, wouldn't be a very sociable guy. Even Magnus Carlsen, seems pretty normal, but he is an introvert and kind of odd in his own particular way.
I think there's definitely a different outlook on the world when you have such a high IQ. And it's very hard for us to empathize, and it's very hard for them to empathize with us. Like, you look at it as social awkwardness, but I just think that when you Magnus Carlsen, I don't know what his IQ is, but it's it would be plus 160, like something ridiculous like that. And when you're looking at the world in that way, like we like the normal bloke just can't fathom it almost, you know. And a lot of chess players, I talked about memory before, but a lot of chess players have near eidetic memories, able to just remember positions and positions and positions, and that allows them to recognize those patterns all the time, you know. There was a video about Magnus online where someone was just bringing up positions of his game. So you've watched that video, yeah. And just for the audience, they brought up positions of his games, and he was able to tell the person who brought it up exactly which game it was, when it was played, what the next move was, everything. These are games from 10 years ago.
Oh, longer, man.
Longer, yeah.
There was games from 1980 that he had remembered. And the craziest one was, or what he would do at the start was put them into a particular position.
Yeah.
And then Magnus would say which game it was between which players and what year.
Yeah.
The craziest one was, it was just originally set up. He made one move and Magnus was like, oh, D4. He made another move. It was like, D5.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, this is probably, what was it?
Was it him?
Vish.
With Vishy. Yeah.
Vishy,
yeah. Vishwanathan.
He's like, oh, this reminds me of Vishy.
Yeah.
And then the other guy looked at him like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was like two moves in.
Yeah, and then he made one more move and he's like, can you guess? And he's like, Vishy Kasparov? He's like, what year? 1990 or something. He said something, and it was exactly right.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No, I know.
And then the funniest thing, they brought up a Harry Potter game, and the only clue they gave him was entertainment.
Entertainment, yeah.
And he guessed it.
He guessed it, yeah.
What a nerd.
No, I know.
Have you seen The Queen's Gambit?
I have watched The Queen's Gambit. I enjoyed
Great
it.
show.
It is good.
Great
it's good that it got a lot
for
of interest into chess, right? Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. People who wouldn't ever be interested in chess like that and kind of appreciated the beauty of chess. Dying sport, you reckon?
Chess?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it's on the rise. How about the whole Andrew Tate phenomenon right now?
True. He promoted chess too.
He's promoting chess a lot. He's in his own ways.
Yeah.
He's definitely advocating for chess. His father was the highest rated African American chess player at the time. He was an international master, very close to being a grandmaster, but not quite. And I think Andrew's rated at 1,600 on chess.com now.
Is that it?
Yeah. No, it's quite low now, but I think when he was younger, he was a bit better.
Yeah.
When he was 5 years old, he won a state championship in in America somewhere. I think it was Anyways, but there's a lot of that push now in mainstream media about chess, and he's like. A lot of his ideologies are like, oh, this is like a chess game, this and that. Yeah, whether he draws the right conclusions is a debate in itself. But
one of them was actually really interesting. He drew a particular conclusion from chess to real life, where he said, chess makes you. it lets you know that if you fuck up or if you lose a game, it's 100% your fault. You can't blame anyone else. Like either you did a mistake or they just completely outperformed you. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Ultimate accountability.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
it is. Yeah?
yeah.
It's ultimate accountability. I really like that. That's one of my favorite things that's one of the favorite things that Andrew Tate's ever said.
I know. That was unreal.
It's up there. I really like that. I think it's not necessarily true. I think if you have supercomputers play against each other, white always wins because they have the first move.
Right.
But in terms of player to player, human play, 100% correct. It's like it shows you that you can be accountable for all your actions at all times. I think there's a line that you can't cross. It's like people who are going through mental health issues. If you're overly accountable, you can be almost too hard on yourself. Right. And there is a time where you kind of have to admit, like, okay, like this might be something that I like. Let's not hold myself accountable for things I can't control here. But I definitely think a lot of the time, and this kind of diverts to another topic here, but a lot of the time, mental illness and all that, even though it's obviously like a big problem in like young men, I think blaming like negative things in your life on mental illness all the time may not be the best way to go about it or the best way to escape it. Often holding yourself a bit accountable and saying, okay, like I could have done this and this to make it better, like might be a better approach than just kind of pinning it on saying, okay, I'm mentally ill, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, like I can't do it.
Yep.
So yeah, I like that. I really like that message about accountability. That was a good one from Andrew Tate. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, depressed people, if something goes wrong in their life, it's a spiral downwards and they're hyper self-critical.
Yep.
And so I see the message. I see what you're saying about, there's certain instances where that, you shouldn't maybe 100% take accountability, because if you already do that and you're depressed, then you're just sending yourself downwards and downwards.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day, like people like that, people like, I don't know, intellectual speakers who come out publicly and express their views very sternly.
Yeah.
I often think like, yes, they're right. They say it kind of black and white, like it's a truth. For example, Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
You would go to Ben Shapiro if you have a thought, say on marriage, religion, conservatism, and he would tell you exactly. He would back up and reinforce what your presuppositions are and articulate it in a way that you never could, right? And so you're just hearing this flurry of thoughts from Ben Shapiro, who's very well considered, and he's kind of reinforcing what you're already kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But I think, are saying those things to a particular type of people. Like Andrew Tate, when he's saying that thing about full accountability, isn't thinking about like, the people that are depressed.
Yeah.
He's frustrated, it seems to me, at those people who are living in great conditions and are like shouting victimhood.
Yes.
And he's like, shut up, this and this. So obviously there's a lot of grey that they all know about, but it's interesting to see like when people do talk, and I'm trying to figure that out for myself. When I do talk, which of my thoughts are my own, or what am I saying to try and cater to someone that I potentially disagree with or agree with?
I think you've made a very good point there about Ben Shapiro and Andrew Tate. I think it's kind of a flaw of people who want to become popular in a public space. They have to come out with these extreme messages, these things that are black and white and like concrete, and like don't give any leeway to the other side, because they feel like you're under threat in the public eye, right? As soon as you start like reasoning and trying to find a middle ground, especially if you're just outrightly stating something in a public debate, right? Like the other side are going to use that against you. And I think it goes to the purpose of debates these days. If you look at politicians, it's not about finding agreement, it's about winning.
Yep.
Yeah. They want to beat the person that they're debating. And in those sort of interactions, they're not going to reason with and like find some compromise. They're going to straight out go for the jugular and like, say that their point is right, nothing else, and then and really go for it.
Yep.
So I think a lot of the time, even though like people say that, you should always discuss things with people with similar values. I mean, with different values, because there's a lot of growth, because like you get your perspectives challenged. I feel like the most valuable things that I've seen online is when people have similar values but different conclusions.
Right.
Like if you have two people who have quite a liberal ideology, but
We're talking liberal in the sense of American liberal, right?
American liberal, yeah.
So left wing.
Left wing,
Yep,
yes.
cool.
Left-winged ideology.
Yep.
But have different conclusions about, let's say, guns, and gun bans and stuff like that. I feel like you get the most value out of those discussions because they're not fighting about the values; they're just talking about evidence and their conclusion. You know.
Yeah.
I think when it becomes direct opposition between two sides, you know, like if you've seen even Andrew Tate going on the show with like David Portnoy, you know, like complete opposition. They're just trying to win. They're just trying to beat each other. So you're not actually getting much value out of that. You're hearing both sides discreetly, and it's like if you agree with Tate, you agree with Tate. If you agree with Portnoy, you know, it's like you're not getting value out of that. You know?
Oh, and it causes like resentment and division. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like I find the most value when speakers and thinkers like Jordan Peterson go on Joe Rogan, because Joe is, you know, a media personality who is so rare because he genuinely wants to listen and learn for himself.
I agree.
He's not like the other media people who are like trying to get a 10-minute snap video or trying to get a gotcha moment.
Yes,
he genuinely wants to learn. So he'll bring on liberals, conservatives, whoever, and like try and dig deep into what the hell's going on and disagree sometimes and agree sometimes and come to his own rationalizations. The videos where I like can feel myself getting angry and resentful are like him going up against some, you know, media person who's like trying to call him out on every little thing that he said 10 or 20 years ago. And I'm like, well, what is the point of this?
Are we talking about Rogan here? Or
Peterson.
Peterson, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because he's done a few like those battle interviews, you would say.
Yeah, I'd say like I completely agree. I think the kind of premise behind Rogan's podcast though is like he's an average guy. You know, he always pulls that. He's like, I'm an average guy. I don't really know anything. Yeah, like he always says that. Like I've seen this and this. I've read this and this, but what do I know? Yeah, and then he gets his guests to talk about it. You know. Yep. And you look at his most famous podcast. They're with Peterson, Shapiro. You know, these like right wing conservative figures. But he's a Democrat who voted for Bernie Sanders. Yeah. You know, like, so I like that. I really like that openness and discussion. I think, this actually leads me to another question. Like, I'd personally consider myself like a left-wing but rationalist in a way, you know? I'd say I like...
Would you consider yourself like a liberal, essentially? Well, this is the difference, right? Because at our age... I just fail to see the difference between radical left and left. Yeah. And it's because of, you know, we go to university, we see that, we see all the purple hair stuff. You know, all of that. Yeah. And so at our age, it's like we associate left wing, and when these speakers like Shapiro and Peterson and stuff talk about left wing and Tate, they are also referring mostly to the radical leftists, not to the liberal types like Joe who sit just slightly off centre, lean left, and are rational about things. That would be you?
I think that would be me. Yeah. I'd say...
It's so rare to come by because I had a conversation with someone who... Like, I have frequent conversations with this person, and she combats all this radical left stuff because it's nonsense. Really... It only requires 5 minutes of deeper thought to understand that it's just absurd.
I think there is a lot of nonsense there, but we got to say on both sides too. It's like you look at both ends of the spectrum, and you look at the radicals on either side. Yeah, and you just think like, how the fuck can you get so off course in your ideology? You know? Oh yeah. I think people who are closer centered can, you know, like it's fine. Like right, left, whatever. You can at least have some sort of reasonable debate there, you know. But yeah, continue what you were saying.
Yeah, well, I was talking to this person, and she said that she considers herself left wing. Yeah. It was an older lady, and I was rattled by that because that was kind of the first time where I was like, okay, you know, there's a difference. There's a line between the radical left and the liberal types. Yeah. And then it keeps going. It's not just conservative, centre, or radical left. which is good because those people like Joe are the ones who are actually open to having discussions with the other side and coming to their own conclusions.
I think it almost comes down to like not even it almost comes down to not even discreetly
Grouping.
choosing a side in this debate. The reason that I said like I'd say I'm slightly left leaning is because it's an easy way to like kind of
It's a good way to categorize.
It's a good way to categorize something.
Yeah.
Like simply put your views out there. But at the same time, I'm a rationalist in the way that I will pick like what seems the most logical in a given situation. If something's illogical, then I'm not going to just support it because it's an idea purveyed by the left. You know, so I think that's a pitfall that a lot of people fall under. They think that they're left winged, and you've got like or they think that they're right winged, and they just adopt every single ideology that's put in front of them because it's the side that they're supposed to be on, you know? And people say that they don't do that, but they do. And it's like, even with the whole Andrew Tate phenomenon, it's like there's that resent towards the extreme left, and Andrew Tate's like the enemy of an enemy kind of thing.
Exactly.
So it's like he's opposing people that they don't like, and they might not agree with all of his ideologies, but they're a supporter, they're a fan, because he's the spearhead for this, like for some crazy shit that's going on the other side of the other side of the field. Don't you agree?
He's telling them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And they love it. But then they're not. Then they're not able to, differentiate what they think as well. That's why, like, I'm skeptical of people. Let's dodge the sex trafficking stuff.
Okay. But now we don't know what's going on.
We don't know what's going on. Anyways, but before all that happened, I was skeptical of people who were like, I 100% hate Tate. Like, he's a misogynist. He's this and this and this.
Yeah.
And skeptical of people who were like, I love Tate.
Exactly.
Like, he's such a legend. Everything he says is right. Because there's things that you can take from everyone that you can bring into your own mind and choose for yourself what you want to believe and what you don't think is right. I said this on the last podcast. There was a controversial philosopher called Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of him.
No,
This is the first time where I was like, this kind of inspired me, because I was like, wow, there's so much open space for your thought that is like undiscovered, untouched, and you can kind of think what you think, and who knows, you could be the first person to think that. Like, you can group together a few different thoughts, come to your own conclusion, and it could go left or right or whatever. It could take its own turn, but it's your own thought.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so beautiful. And when I figured that out for myself was when Peterson said, there's a controversial figure called Nietzsche, and he said, a lot of people read Nietzsche and read something that they don't like that he said, and they throw away his book.
Yeah.
And he said, you can't throw away Nietzsche. Like, you just can't do it. You have to, he's a famous philosopher for a reason. And you have to pick apart, even if it's very little that you like about what he said.
Right?
Yeah. If you don't like what he said, at least you can find something that you may like and then incorporate that in your own views. And if you don't, well, then you can just use that to strengthen your argument.
Yeah.
Because when someone says that, you can be like, yeah, I know, I understand that point, but, and then rebuttal that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you can have uniqueness in your ideas. Why follow an agenda when you can kind of create your own like conglomeration of ideas yourself, And I'm a big believer in that. I definitely have some this is what going back to like left and right and like pulling ideas from each side. I think the reason that I associate myself with the left is because in general their like ideology seems to follow like the scientific rigor, I guess. Like, I'm studying mathematics and medicine. I know you may disagree with me here, but I feel like if you look at academia as a whole, it's usually something that's more like left leaning,
Right.
It's like the idea of following the scientific rigor and like understanding truth from evidence, I think is originally a left wing concept. I feel like that's been convoluted in the recent past, but I think people who are on the moderate left definitely follow that ideology more than the right do, But
are you talking about science versus religion here? Are you talking about like conservatives follow a more traditional route and tend to be religious people and the left
I think religion is a part of it.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
But like there are other things as well. I think it's like, you know, you at the same time, I think people on the right like stem their ideas a lot of the time like in rationality. Like it's things that are rational, like logical all the time, you know. But no, it's an interesting one. I kind of identify with both sides because I'm like, well, I want to have ideas that are based on science, like, and as you said, like some religious philosophies are kind of like crazy in the way that they're being like still pushed into society today. I don't know if you're religious or not, but like I'd say I'm closing in on being an atheist at the moment. So, but yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask that. I was, after three years, I would say 3 years of deeply thinking about this.
Yeah.
And like battling in my own head whether I thought it. And in the past 2 years, it's really kind of confronted me whether I believe in God or not. And, you know, I think it's easy coming from religious parents who like go to church and do that full on to take a different stance against that and be like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
And kind of rebel in some sense against your parents' views.
Be a contrarian.
Yeah, exactly. And so for a long time in my teenage years, I was like, I'm 100% atheist. And when people asked me, yep, atheist was like the normal cool thing to say, right? Yeah. And then only 3 years ago where I started really thinking about it, like what do I believe? And anyway, there was just some existential questions going on in my brain. In the last 2 years, I've worked at the courts, and that question always comes up, whether it be to witnesses or the jury. Do you prefer to take a religious or non-religious oath? And I've always just asked myself, what would I take? And that's when it came to my mind more. So like, what would I take, a religious oath or a non-religious oath? Because this is important. And just the other week, I was watching a video, and it was one friend helping another friend sign up to the religion of Islam. It was something like that, right? And the other friend really wanted to do it, but he was scared. And the guy was helping him through it, and it was like a mutual bond of these guys trying to help each other out and find what they believe through religion.
Sure.
And I kind of put myself in the friend's shoes and thought, well, if I was doing that, if I was being prepared to subscribe to a religion, I would be frightened. And I kind of associated that fear with the belief in God, because why else would I be frightened? Why else would I be frightened to sacrifice or to give myself to a higher power if I didn't believe in it?
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
So wait, where did you say that fear is like really stemming from? Like,
well, it was just a fear to give myself to a religion or give myself to a higher power, which was what these two were doing in the video. Because I don't know,
like give yourself by that. Do you mean like to a single higher power, or like do you feel as if you're cutting
a particular God?
Okay. Do you feel is it because you think you're cutting yourself off from other like doctrines or whatever? Like you have to follow this ideology now?
No,
it's like subscribing to an ideology.
No, not that. It's just like, I mean, if you believe in God, you kind of act in the way that they say. You know, there's some moral and ethical boundaries, and there's limits to what you do.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
What you can do, and so if you don't believe in that, well, you don't believe in those boundaries. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. No, I kind of get what you're saying. I think it's like subscribing to any ideology. Like what I dislike about it. I've been reading and watching a lot of like Sam Harris's content at the moment. Do you know Sam Harris? Yeah. He's an interesting guy. I feel like I found him just because a lot of my ideologies align with his. I think he's left leaning again. He's one of he's the four horsemen of atheism in current times. He's like, his something that he said was like, subscribing to a religion is like almost like just saying that I believe in this set of doctrines. Yeah. But it's like atheism doesn't mean that you lack the doctrines. It's just that you're creating them for yourself. Like it's not a single book for everyone. Like needs to decide and create boundaries how you have to live your life. It's like, and what that does often in religion is it devoids you of some accountability, especially when times have changed, Like in the Quran, for example, like I wouldn't say I'm at all Islamophobic. Like I've got so many Muslim friends, but it's like there's a line in the Quran that says to kill the idolaters, which, you know, non-believers, you know? And it's like at that point, most happy practicing Muslims are obviously not following that extreme route. But it is a source of jihadism and all of that in the Middle East. And at the same time, it's like at that point you're picking and choosing not to follow the doctrines of Islam that you don't like, and choosing to follow the ones that you do. So at that point, I'd pose to you, what's the difference between that and atheism, where you pick and choose your values and your own doctrines?
Right. Well, but the difference I would say is that I'm acknowledging where those values and doctrines come from, where those those ethical boundaries come from, and I would say that they stem from religion. I would say that what we differentiate between good and evil, or bad and wrong, or, you know, what is a hero and what doing something virtuous and good means, comes from religion itself. And so for me, it's not whether I believe in God or not, which, as I've said, I think I do, right?
Yeah.
And I've only recently discovered this, but I can appreciate the values and ethical boundaries that religion gives us as individuals and to society.
Yeah.
And I know that if I do follow those, then I will be a better person, right? I will be a more well-rounded or just a better person for myself and for my family. And so, and I, you know, whether you believe in God or not, I think that you should act in a way as if he does exist.
Okay. Like there is someone watching over you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that way you don't become nihilistic, you don't become meaningless. The phrase that bothers me with young people now is like, do it. What does it matter anyways? You're going to die. You're not going to be remembered.
Okay.
Right? It's like, it's such a nihilistic approach to life. It I don't know. I think it's rooted in atheism, but I would need to look into it more. But it's like, what is the point of life? And it's, I mean, saying that and saying that to other people is just devoiding any meaning from their life. We like to consider ourselves as important. I do, certainly do. I like to think that what I'm doing now is going to contribute to society, or, you know, at least contribute to my family, to my kids in the future, to my friends. It's not just like this approach where, well, you know, it all doesn't matter. Science put us here. In the end, we all die, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'd say I get exactly what you're saying. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm the expert on this. Like as you said, like right now, this is what I believe, and I feel like it's constructed quite like recently. You know, I have religious parents as well. My parents are Hindus, and I'd still say I'm loosely Hindu. I enjoy practicing when I go back to India and stuff like that. But I'd say that in terms of nihilism, like there are two ways that you can look at it. You can be like, well, there's finality to life, and that means that my life has no purpose or whatever, and like I won't live on, and like, you know, there's no afterlife, and like what's it called? You know, there may not be any reincarnation or spirit or whatever. But what that does do is, if once you get past that nihilistic stage, you can really be present in the moment, because it's like, if you say, what is the point of life? Well, the point of life is to enjoy the moments that come in front of you. It's like when you're watching a movie. Like this is sort of a point that like Sam Harris alludes to as well in his idea of atheism, which I'm slightly ripping off. But like he doesn't believe in free will. So, and I think that it's very hard to prove that free will exists. If you think, like, I'm studying like a lot of biology right now. So you understand that like everything, your movements, your thoughts, how you perceive the information around you is all due to like your neurons and your cells, and how and its integration in the brain. So, you know, a quote that he used was like, we're neurochemical puppets in a way. But we're kind of living in a pseudo reality. It feels real enough that we can recognize things and feel good. And so if you understand that, you don't need to say that, oh, my life is pointless. You can say that my life is about enjoying myself in the present. It's not thinking about creating this like long list of achievements so that I can pass it on to Jesus and go to heaven. I'm not, obviously I'm being a bit satirical here, but I think it's about being present, enjoying every moment, enjoying the little things. And also it's like going back to what I was saying about like watching a movie. You might watch a movie a second time and you might know exactly what's going to happen, but you still feel captivated. If it's a good film, you still feel captivated and you're there watching it and you're enjoying it. You know, you're still present. So it's like, I think that I'm struggling not to sound super cringy here, but I think life is just a really complicated movie that we're all just kind of living in and partaking in. And it's about the experience in the now, not about, you know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I would give you this question though.
Okay.
If you're an atheist and you're trying to discover your own values and, you know, ethical boundaries, where do you draw the line? How far can you go? If you're doing it for yourself, you have no limit.
Okay.
You can be persuaded by your moods, your temptations, your urges. There is no structure you have to follow. And I would argue that yes, life is about living in the moment, right? But I mean, that can be interpreted and taken as far as it can, like anywhere, really. Okay. Live in the moment. I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean you just you're with your girlfriend and live in the moment. There's another opportunity. I'm just going to take. I'm living in the moment. I'm fun. I'm with my friends. I'm a bit tipsy. Whatever. I would say that the most fulfillment and enjoyment comes from sacrifice, right? Sacrificing the momentary things you enjoy for the benefit of the long term. For example, avoiding unhealthy foods. That's one form of sacrifice for the betterment of you in the future. That is extended in the philosophy of religion. It essentially is just a sacrifice to God. And what they say is that if you do that, you do sacrifice yourself to God. You do sacrifice those urges and those temptations you have for momentary pleasure, and you follow this structure, you will get fulfillment. You will be a happy person. That's what I believe. At the moment, I'm just not convinced on the live your life in the moment philosophy, I will call it, because I think that it lacks sacrifice and discipline.
Okay, I think you've made 2 points there. So I'll address the first one, which is like where do you draw the lines? Like where are we getting these societal things of right and wrong if it's not through religion? I think generally the idea of what is right and wrong in society is created by the environment of society. In the past, that was created through religion, because when education was a tool of the elite, or was a privilege for the elite, I should say, it was like religion was, the option to to essentially control the masses in a positive way. If you had large societies, you can't have people thieving and raping and all of that. So the easiest way to implement these values is to create this religion and say, okay, follow these doctrines and you'll go to the afterlife and you'll live on, right? So I think now that's replaced by education in society. Education is for all, especially I'm talking about the West here. But I refuse to believe that our constraints and not being able to do whatever you want is like that needs to be purely through religion. I think education is an appropriate alternative. Do I think that there isn't enough of that ideology being pushed in school? That you should do this and you should work hard and be driven. Maybe there's an argument to that. But I think that religion isn't the only source of it. Saying that there is a God and, kind of alluding to an afterlife isn't the only way to get people to follow those sort of things. The second point that you made was about the living in the moment thing, yeah? So I'd say that for me, when I was saying living in the moment, I didn't say you devoid yourself of all responsibilities and you're like a bug floating around. I'd say as someone who I've just started a 7-year degree to become something in the next 10 years. I'm looking long term as well. But I think when I say live in the moment, it's enjoy the things as they come. It's not about not setting goals and not having drive. But for me, it's as I said before at the start, it's enjoying this process of being in uni. They're the years that you miss, It's not all about the results. It's not all about the salary, the getting that 7-figure paycheck one day. It's not about that. It's about being present and enjoying this experience, right? You can still have goals and you still got to work hard for them, and you still have to sacrifice for them if you want to achieve in the future. But don't even think about it as sacrifice. Like if in terms of like, if I'm studying, for an exam, I don't look at it as me like, well, obviously sometimes you're going to grind if you've left the work a bit too late, but I'm talking in general. I get enjoyment out of studying. You know, it may sound like a nerdy thing to say, but that's why I'm doing it, you know? Otherwise, I would have left school. I wouldn't have done uni. I get enjoyment and satisfaction about learning things and understanding things. So that 7-year grind, as we're calling it, to become a doctor, instead of looking at that as sacrifice, I'm living in the moment and enjoying every step along the way and taking value out of that, you know? That's what I meant by living in the moment,
I don't think people who are religious don't have that, though. That's my only problem with that argument, is that everyone will enjoy the little things. You will always get dopamine hits, right?
Sure.
You will always have something enjoyable to do, you know, have friends to go out with, or watch a movie that you enjoy at home. So that's always there. My argument would be that living in the moment, I don't know what that's characterized as. I know for a fact that when I live in the moment, I can happily go online, buy 3 shirts, 2 pairs of shoes, and, you know, a new laptop. And that's living in the moment for me.
Okay.
But I know in the future, that's not going to benefit me in any way, shape, or form. And like, at the moment, I have about 40 shirts, and I only wear 3 of them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what's the point of this, of all this excess consumption? At the time, sure enough, I was living in the moment. But would I have benefited from just sacrificing those urges and temptations, you know, and delaying that process, delaying that gratification, the instant gratification? I think so, definitely, because, man, it's well known. Like lots of millionaires have miserable lives, and you wonder why. It's because they have too much. They have more than they need. They have way too much more than they need. Like, I think there's a figure that's like past $80,000 a year or something. The money past that doesn't really contribute to your happiness at all.
Yeah.
And
No,
so,
I've heard a statistic like that as well. It's just you get bigger and better things, and then that's not enough, right? It's like people always want what they can't have.
Exactly.
It's human nature. Right?
If you keep living in the moment, I would say, then there is no boundary, and I wouldn't know where to stop or what actually gives me happiness and what doesn't.
Yeah, I'd say there's also a few things to unpack there. I think it's fine. I'm not saying that religious people don't live in the moment at times, but I don't think that they require the baseless idea and like the external motivator of a God to push them into doing the right things and to be driven. Yeah, that was more my point. And when I say living in the moment, I don't mean to sound all hippie and like, yeah, bro, like just live in the moment, dude. Like, don't worry about that's not what I'm saying at all. I think my idea of living in the moment is about enjoying the little things. And I think your argument about like the money thing is almost supporting my point of view. I think it's like, if you've got someone who's never happy, never complacent, you know, like that's not living in the moment. It's like living in the moment is enjoying the little things in life as they come, but still chasing your goals. Yeah, if chasing your goals if you deem everything as sacrifice on the path to something, like it just doesn't seem like a nice path to me. Like I think I'd almost like to take the optimistic outlook and say that instead of it being sacrifice and like hard work, well, it is hard work objectively, but instead of it being sacrifice and this negative thing, it's something positive. It's like I'm learning. It's like I'm enjoying this. I want to believe that I'm enjoying the process to get where I want, you know?
Yeah, of course. But man, I think also religion gives you this mental backup. Like, for example, I've read some deep books, horrific books, I must say. One of them being The Gulag Archipelago by Solzhenitsyn. And he was a Russian man in the Soviet times, and he was held in the Gulag camps, right? And so he kind of wrote this book while he was in there, and it was absolutely horrific what happened to
What
those
are the
people in there.
What are the Gulag camps?
They're it's just like it's like Soviet labor camps.
Okay.
Yeah, you get put through. It's just horrific, and,
Yeah.
and anyone goes in there. It's just like a process of selection.
Okay.
And you get put in there. You don't
Yeah.
have to do anything bad or anything
Yeah.
like that. Anyways, he was in there, and he wrote this book while he was in there, and it seems to me, and it seems to him, that the reason that he was able to, and the people around him were able to find some motivation, some will to live, was through sacrificing and knowing that there was a higher power that they devote their lives to. Like, if, you're saying live in the moment, right? That's happiness. You find happiness through that. But I would argue that happiness could be taken away in an instant.
Yeah.
I picture happiness as a small little raft in the ocean. And once a wave comes, once any form of suffering or death or anything like that comes into your life, it's taken away so quickly. And so for me, religion is, in some sense, trying to find some meaning, some purpose, some sacrifice to a greater good. Pain and suffering will come in your life.
Yeah.
But if you have some meaning, some foundation, something that you can devote and sacrifice your life to, then, maybe you won't be as hurt or as lost in life when that does come, because it will be inevitable.
There's that quote, like, everyone's an atheist until the bombs are dropping, like when you're in the trenches.
Exactly.
I can't remember who said that.
Man, I've had so many times where, like, back in the day,
when shit hits the fan.
Yeah, I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist. But shit hits the fan, I'm praying.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
Yeah.
and why am I doing that?
Yeah. I'm not. It is a source of hope, and it is beneficial for plenty of people. I had this conversation with my mum just before, who's a loose Hindu.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, eats beef.
Yeah,
might be condemned to Hindu hell or whatever. But not that exists. But yeah, at the same time, like, she said that when her father died, it just is comforting to believe in reincarnation and believe that he's still there. Spirit is still there. She's obviously, she's well educated. She doesn't actually believe that, but it's that hope. It's rather than, like, actively looking at denying it and saying that's false or that's so spiritual and, like, kind of waving that off as nonsense. You use things that are useful to you and that give you hope. I almost would argue, though, that that's an understanding that religion doesn't exist, but you're just using it as a tool when it's suitable to you, And I think I have no problem with that at all.
Yeah,
so
well,
I completely
that's
agree,
what I mean. So I'm saying that whether I believe in God or not doesn't matter to me, because it's religion will be the foundation for me. Like if shit does hit the fan, I know that I'll have some sense of hope.
Yeah,
and I think that's so beneficial to society. It's been lost lately. Like in the West, man, we've seen the decline of religion massively.
Yeah.
And, like, maybe it's not affiliated with, maybe it's not affiliated with the rise in depression and anxiety and nihilism and meaningless in life. And everyone seems to be, trying to be on this pursuit of happiness when, like, I don't even think that's the goal, bro.
Yeah. There was something that you said before that I wanted to address. I think living in the moment isn't necessarily living to be happy. I think that's a bit of a, that's not quite on the note that I was saying, at least, because it's just having awareness of what's happening to you right now. I think meditation is a big thing for you. Do you meditate at all?
I've tried.
It, okay.
Yeah.
It's a recent thing for me. I'm not going to say that I'm some guru. But it's just about awareness of the now, whether that's positive or negative. At the same time, I want to make it very clear. It's not being aware and living in the now doesn't mean that you're not setting goals. They're not mutually exclusive. So you can still set goals, set yourself in a path. You can still plan for the future, but in day-to-day life, and, like, you should be very aware of the now, And I think that's what. And I'm not even saying that you should do that. I'm saying that my original point was that it isn't nihilistic to consider a world without God, because we can take enjoyment of just living in the now, or, like, whatever emotion that comes over us, right? So, yeah. That was my main point. It's not necessarily all hopelessness and disparity to think that, hopelessness and despair to think that there's no God and no afterlife. Finality isn't necessarily, like, as negative of a thing as it is pushed by religious people, you know? And if one day, I'm not saying that God doesn't exist. I'm just saying that my view, as I said earlier, is based on rationality. It's like it's evidence-based, you know? If I'm not saying that there couldn't be some supreme power that's created the universe. Very possible, right? With the whole, like, you know, the theory, if we're able to create artificial intelligence and simulations, you know, who's to say that we weren't created by someone else, you know? That's, and if there is evidence to that in the future, I'm more than willing to believe it, you know? If some, you know, prophet suddenly starts performing miracles on children and curing cancer with his bare hands, I will get on my hands and knees, say I was wrong, and that, you know, that religion exists. But I'm just saying, I find it hard to blind myself and just adopt something because it makes me feel better. I want to find solutions in other ways that are more rational and based on science and evidence, you know? And I think that's easy to say because I've had a pretty privileged life.
Yeah.
So it's coming from a point of privilege, I understand. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I feel like it would cause offense in someone who has gone through a lot and religions help them cope.
Yep.
And I completely empathize with that, and I don't mean to offend in that way. But from my point of extreme privilege, I guess that's my point of view.
I think in some sense we're on the same page here. Like, I'm not saying that I'm going to subscribe 100% to a particular religious doctrine, right? I think you can pick apart what you don't like and what you do like, and what you do want to follow and what you don't want to follow, right? Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you hate gays,
yes,
or that you're homophobic or anything like that. And
just
so for
because
me,
you're Islamic doesn't mean you want to kill people who don't believe in your religion.
Exactly. And so there is those forms of extremism which are unhealthy.
Yep.
But in the end, what I said was that I don't know if there's a God or not, but I do want to act as if he's there and he is watching.
Okay.
And I think that would be better.
I think that external accountability for me, I completely understand. That makes sense. That external accountability doesn't need to come from a God for me.
Fair
You
enough.
know? I have other sources of external accountability,
Yep.
like my parents, you know, my friends, my peers, people who want to see me succeed. And I feel like maybe that comes from having like a tight network of people who I feel are behind me. Maybe that's why I don't. I'm obviously not saying that people with religion don't have that.
Yep.
I think that's quite the opposite, because religion is often a way to find those networks. Yeah. Like, a lot of people get support from their church groups and, you know, people with those similar ideas and have adopted those beliefs. But I feel like since I have that external accountability already, I just don't find the need to think that a God is or trick myself into thinking that I know for a fact that a God is watching me, you know?
Right.
One other thing that you said was that, you know, I'm not going to subscribe to all the doctrines, but that's what I'm saying. That's what atheism is. It's like you're saying that you can pick and choose the doctrines that you think are good and bad, and like you're fine to live by that. There's no book telling you exactly what to do. So if you're adopting a religion in the conventional sense, and you're not subscribing to all the doctrines, then are you really being religious? Like, that's a question that I wanted to ask. It may be my ignorance, but are you really being religious at that point, or is that just a convoluted form of atheism?
Right.
That's what I asked my mum.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There's is it agnostic? Agnostic, you believe in a higher power, but you're not religious in some sense.
Agnostic is like, you don't know and you'll never know. I think that's the sentiment.
I think you believe in a higher power, though, is the definition on Google that I read.
You can check it out. I don't think so. I think so. Agnostic is that but I think by definition is that you don't know the creation or if there is some supreme power, and you'll never know in the future.
Right, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah. A person who believes that nothing is known or can be known,
Yeah.
the existence or nature of God.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yep. So
what was the question?
So on the agnostic thing, the reason that I'm not agnostic is because, as I said before about like simulations and stuff, we could find out down the line that the universe is just a construct of some great supreme being, like an Interstellar. You know, have you watched that movie? It's great film. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, top 5 movies for me.
I love it. I'm a big Nolan fanboy. But I think my question before, backtracking, is that if you say that you are someone who is religious but doesn't prescribe to all those doctrines, how can you not justify that how can you justify that that's not just a convoluted form of atheism? Because you're doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm saying that I have these doctrines that I like and subscribe to, and I'm going to pick and choose which one I like from here, there, and everywhere.
But atheism is the denial of the existence of God. That's the only difference.
So it's saying that there is no evidence as of yet, that atheism says that there is no evidence as of yet to imply the existence of God. That's what. So there is nothing to prove that God exists, and that's the slight difference between atheism and agnostics.
Yep.
Agnostics think that we don't know and will never know, and as far as from what I've read, atheism is the belief that we don't know yet. There's no evidence to say so.
Yep.
And I think that goes back to me studying science, being like a rationalist. It just makes sense that I adopt that belief, you know? I think if shit hit the fan in my life and my parents died in a car crash and I was going through depression, I think I would love to have a God to support me. But I guess being in this point of privilege, I almost have this bird's eye view on that. And I'm able to say like, that is a tool to overcome despair and depression and stuff like that, you know? And it's a positive force, but it's not quite true, you know? Like
right. We don't know.
Yeah.
You said that there's no evidence for the existence of God, but I would also say there's no evidence that there's not a God.
Okay.
There's no evidence either way.
Sorry, not that there's no evidence that there isn't not that there is evidence that there's no God, but there isn't evidence that God is in the forms that we have described in the Bible and in the Quran and all that.
Wait, there is evidence that it's not in the forms
So
that we've described.
There's no evidence of God in the forms that have been described in these like religious texts and books.
Right, but there's also no evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, but that's like saying that like it's like saying that, you know, the infinity stone could exist. Like there's no evidence that that stone exists, so you have to check every single rock in the world to check that it doesn't exist. You know, that's actually quoted from Harry Potter for the Harry Potter fans out there. But it's like, you know, like if you can't say that something could possibly exist just because you haven't proved that it doesn't exist, you know? Or you can in a way, but it's like if you're so specific about the story, you're so specific about Jesus and the whole cross thing and how he died on, you know, wherever, like it's the detail and the specificity.
Yeah.
The specificity is so apparent, like, but there's no evidence really to support it. Like I'm a general believer. I'm like, if there came a day where there was conclusive proof of God, I'd be the first one to just be like, yep, okay, sure. There's rational proof, done. You know?
Okay, so we're different in the sense that you need the cold hard evidence, and I don't think I do.
Okay.
Here's a question for you: do you believe in aliens? Right, because going by your logic, there's no evidence for the existence of aliens. There's also no evidence that they're not there. But I would say that saying that aliens don't exist because there's no evidence for it is completely stupid. We have no right to think that in this big, huge universe that we're the only ones here just because we haven't proven the existence of aliens.
No, that's a good point. And that's precisely the distinction I was making with saying that there is no God or there isn't God in the form that we've described.
Right.
If someone said there was a 3-headed dinosaur living on the solar system next to us which could breathe fire and like shit fucking diamonds,
right?
I would say no. There's no evidence to say that.
And then the other person would say, well, you don't know that it's no.
Yeah. And
Fair enough.
What I would say is statistically, the size of the universe, the fact that we're living here and there's suitable conditions here, if there were suitable conditions elsewhere, which is highly likely, there's probably going to be life stemming there too. And I think that's the belief of God could exist. We just don't know.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
But in the way that it is being pushed, it's not true, you know?
Right. Well, yeah. See, I would have to... Man, I'm still on my own, you know, journey to... I don't know which kind of God I believe in, or like, I don't know whether I'm I'm a Muslim or a Christian or a Hindu, or who knows what I am.
Neither do I.
We're on the same page as that. Like, I don't know which particular story I believe. There's so many.
Yeah.
All I know is that I think, and the way that my mind works is the belief in a higher power. So,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to sit here and prove for 1 second that everything in the Bible is true and that it
of
did
course
happen.
not. Yeah.
But I do appreciate that. I think that there is something that's put us here, and I just can't explain it.
Okay.
And no one really can.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got a scientific theory, I would love to hear it.
I think that that's a very rational and reasonable like way to go about it.
Yeah.
I almost feel though that like maybe after this podcast you can have a think like that almost borders in atheist realms at the moment. I think there's been a big push because like atheism is so anti-God. Yeah, it's deemed as anti-God. People forget that it's not actually saying that no God exists and never will exist. It's not the negation of agnostics. Yeah. What it's saying is that God or at least how I believe it, is that God in the form that it is described does not exist. Because, and if God did exist, the people in the 14th century or 14 BC or whenever the Quran and the Bible were written, I don't actually know, they wouldn't have been able to figure it out, or I don't think they would have. Yeah. I also think that if God wanted to be recognized by the world, there is the argument that he would have made it a bit more clear. Yeah. If he wanted himself to be worshipped, why not like make it a bit clearer in the text? Why have so many fallacies in the Bible and in the Quran that are just factually incorrect? Like that the world was created 4,000 years ago or whatever. I don't know if that's actually written in the Bible. I may be incorrect.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Yeah.
I'm not speaking from like an extreme point of knowledge here. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But like I know that there are a lot of like incongruencies in the Bible, and it goes against evolution, for example. You know, so like scientific discoveries are made, and then like not all the time, but often like deeply religious people who are following the texts would say that no, that's impossible. You know, like because you know Jesus and whatnot. I think that at the same time, though, another interesting thing that I wanted to bring up, I'm kind of going off topic here, but there's in religion, there are a lot of religious people with low IQs. I feel like there are a lot of people who are just religious, blindly following, but then there's an interesting small like 1% of the elite who have like extremely high IQs and are religious. Yeah. So I find that very, very interesting. I'm like, you see that sliver of people on the top, and just a lot of them are religious, you know?
Yep.
Like what Peterson and Shapiro, for one, like both very successful. What Shapiro went to Harvard Law, yeah? And like just extremely successful individuals.
Hyper intelligent.
Is religious, you know? So you see religion culminate in the elite a lot of the time.
Yep.
And I think that's almost a completely separate discussion. Like, is there the ties between education and religion then? You know, like is that the thing? Like, but no. Yeah, what do you think about that?
What do you mean education and religion? Should we be teaching religion in schools?
No. More like why do you reckon that there's this like level of hyper elite that have that like religious component in their life? Like a lot of Jewish people, for example, like the whole Kanye thing, like so many CEOs and all of that, like the top of companies are Jewish. So it's like, and Jewish people tend to be, you know, conservative, I guess. And like, you know, they only marry Jews. Obviously I'm speaking generally. But it's very interesting to me.
Yeah, it is
so
interesting.
I'm not.
I can see your point of religious people having like the statistics, you know, skewing.
Yeah.
Largely. So some with very high IQ and then a lot with low IQ.
The middle ground tend to be atheists, yeah? Like
right.
I'd say, and tend to be non-believers. Because I guess being like simply just saying that like, okay, Jesus didn't exist is a I guess more of a simple idea. It's like Occam's razor, you know? Have you've heard of Occam's razor?
I've heard of it, yeah. Not too familiar though.
It's like you take the theory with the least assumptions as far as I remember. So it's like if you're going to say that Jesus didn't exist and he didn't come back to life and all of that, it's a simpler ideology, you know? But I think the understanding and awareness that there could be a higher power, we just don't know about it. I think that takes like a little bit more awareness to understand, instead of just outrightly saying, "Oh, God is bad." It's like it doesn't exist. Like there's nothing. Like, you know. But yeah,
man. But yeah. Well, to answer that, people like Shapiro and Peterson and these elites that do believe in religion, they've spent their life just about, I know Peterson has, reading like philosophers and texts of the past, and it's no surprise that he's come to his conclusion. He's also skeptical to answer the question, do you believe in God? That's been sprung upon him a few times, and he goes, well, I don't like how the question's phrased. He sort of has a similar perspective. Well, I have a similar perspective to him in the sense that he doesn't know, and he's not going to subscribe fully to the all the doctrines, but he would like to live as if God exists.
Yeah.
And I think, man, the reason for the elites being religious is like, I'm talking about the intellectual elites here. Is that they've spent their whole life studying these texts and these, I don't know, doing research and essentially devoting their life to try and find meaning. And they've discovered that potentially, perhaps through that, it stemmed in religion. Like meaning for them is found in religion.
Yeah.
And that takes extremely deep thought and knowledge. Maybe not knowledge, deep thought.
I'd say knowledge.
Curiosity.
As well. Yeah.
Okay, knowledge. Which most people just aren't willing to do. Like I always thought that it would be very interesting being a Rhodes Scholar until a mate kind of pushed back and said, well, man, you know, for me, the interest laid in trying to discover the truth. What is the truth?
Yeah.
There's so much grey, but if you really devote your life to trying to discover the truth without, you know, bias and ideology, then perhaps you can find meaning. And my mate said to me, he pushed back and he said, bro, there aren't many sociable scholars. Like, it isn't a life that seems fun and enjoying. It's just, when I picture a scholar, I picture them in their basement with a light, just reading texts and trying to interpret them and writing down their own interpretations. So yeah, I think that there's only a few, because these people have spent their lives trying to discover for themselves, and most people don't want to do that. And so maybe, you know, that middle ground, the mid IQ, would you say? Average IQ people?
Like, you know, in the mean, near the mean.
They can rationalize. They're not going to jump to one conclusion, but they also aren't willing to do the amount of research that it takes to potentially be one of those elites that believe in religion.
I'd say, so talking about the elite thing as well, I'd say that there are these expectations within religion that are highly beneficial to creating success. Yeah. The ideas of hard work, the ideas of like being motivated, not like, you know, living in the moment per se in the traditional way.
Succumbing to your temptations.
Succumbing to temptations, living a disciplined life.
Yep.
I think those qualities breed success. I'd say that I'd argue that religion isn't the only way to achieve that, but it is a way. Yeah, a lot of people, like if you look at I actually haven't looked at these statistics, but I'd be curious to see in the West the average income of religious people versus non-religious people.
Right.
That would be an interesting one for me. I think it would be skewed by, as we said, those extremely high achievers. I think that the doctrines within religion are very productive in creating successful people if they are that type of people that is hyper motivated as well, you know?
Yep.
But it goes to show that it's not everyone who believes in religion, right? A lot of the top, a high percentage of the 1% comprise of religious people, but a low percentage of people in general are at the top of their field in anything, right? So, yeah, no, it's an interesting one. For sure.
Would you say that there's a difference between levels of, say, happiness within the family between religious and non-religious families?
I think so. I think so. I think the idea of having like a happy and stable house, once again, is something that's been pushed in religion a lot of the time.
The idea of community
and like I guess not being like overly promiscuous and like and stuff like that. I'd say that in the masses, Yes, 100%.
Mm.
I do think that there are a lot of positives of religion. I definitely can admit that, but it's just I don't think it's necessary for me personally.
Fair enough.
Which is why I feel like I'm able to adopt a lot of these positive beliefs, but at the same time not believe in a specific God
Yep.
or a specific holder of accountability for me to do that.
Yeah.
So,
See, this is an interesting conversation for me because I kind of threw away atheism because most of the atheists I talked to were, bordering on nihilistic in some sense, whereas you're much different.
yeah.
We kind of are towards similar viewpoints.
I think
we
so
just
too.
skew in some perceptions
I'd say so
of
too.
our own
Yeah.
realities. So going back to what we were saying, like, what is my belief targeted at? My belief before this discussion was kind of targeted at the atheists who I've spoken to who are my age, who just completely throw out the idea of any higher power, right? It's like kind of a certainty. No, it's just science. It's this theory that put us here, and this can explain this, this. So yeah, man, great conversation for me.
No, honestly, yeah.
And have been meaning to listen to Sam Harris more as well. Listen to Jordan Peterson. Have you listened to their debate?
I haven't.
It's like a 3-hour debate, so it's pretty long.
I'm combing through all of his podcasts. I really do like Sam Harris. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's a neuroscientist, first of all.
Yeah.
So he's got a PhD in neuroscience, and then he did a Bachelor of Philosophy as well.
Yeah.
So he's got the mixture of the liberal arts and the pure science as well.
He also did some like self-searching in like Buddhist monasteries and whatnot.
Yeah, and in India as well.
Yeah.
So he's had a lot of experiences with drugs. He's not as in like party drugs.
Yep.
But like he did use MDMA and have like experiences on MDMA like just out in the wilderness and was like exploring the mind. And then he came back full circle and was like, well, is there a way to stimulate these sort of otherworldly experiences naturally? And the fact that there could be some benefit in that. So then he created his meditation app. And apparently like there's a lot of research that shows that you can like reach an almost psychedelic state in meditation if you become like good enough at it.
Really?
I don't know how true that is because I'm like starting from the bottom kind of thing.
Yeah. Are you on his app?
I'm on his app. Yeah, I'm on his app. So I do think though that like, people, there have been lots of documented cases of like psychosis from people doing meditation, extreme anxiety, like the negative affects as well, which is interesting because anxiety, psychosis, like that's the sort of things that you attribute to psychedelic drugs, Right. So I think he's really made that connection there. And I'm trying to look into that more as well and find out about it. And I like how he approaches it from a rational point of view. Again, I keep saying rational. I like the idea of rationality. It really gives me the grounds for doing what I do rather than just just believing it because someone said it,
Yep.
I wouldn't say that I dictate my whole life on rationality. I'm not like I wouldn't want to live like a fucking straight line all the time.
Yep.
Like you have your successes and then you have your failures and all of that. Like life's a fucking life's crazy, but at the same time, when I'm subscribing to something like meditation, I like that it's pushed in tandem with the scientific principles is what I wanted to say. So yeah, no, it's really good. I'd recommend getting the app. It costs like $100 for a year, but he has this thing that if you can't afford it, you just say you can't afford it, and then he gives it to you for free because he thinks it should be accessible for all.
And just everyone would say you can't afford it.
No, I reckon that not many people do.
Really?
Because it's like if you can't afford it, you do. Like you pay for it,
Yeah.
I definitely got it for free personally. A broke uni student. Yeah. Nah. So you gotta you just chuck in there that you say that you can't afford the app, and then he says, we'll give you like a 6-month scholarship for free. And then I felt so bad about it that I went and subscribed to his podcast, like to get the subscriber feed, and I just paid it. I'm like, fuck it.
See, but I don't know why he does that. Why monetize it? Like the podcast. I mean,
yeah. So he doesn't want ads on his podcast. Yeah. Like his thing is like, well, I'm taking this time to create. So, and he's just outright with it. I'm not going to have any ads on here. I don't want to be putting any ads on. So if you want to watch the full podcast, you have to pay a certain sum. If not, you can watch part of it. Like there's like hours still. And even with the podcast thing, if you say you can't afford it, he'll give it to you for free.
Right.
So it's in both cases.
Wow. There you
But it's
go.
like it's just I like it because it's incentivizing people who can pay for it to pay for his work instead of advertising. Like I think it was Rogan who had he had like some sex toy or something was a sponsor of his at the start of his career.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like coming back to haunt him now.
Yeah,
Everyone's bringing it up. It was like
you got to be careful with who you sponsor.
yeah, because if they do so, anyway, it's a sex toy. It's not that bad, but it's like imagine if you get like some ads and you're just sitting there like pushing this stuff on your consumers that you don't actually believe in, and then the product does like serious damage. Like I think that's really what he was going against. I'd say it's very hard to know with celebrities whether people are like good or bad. You know, like even Andrew Tate. Like he looks like a bit of a wanker when he's talking, but I don't actually know if I like sat down in a room with him whether he'd be a nice guy. You know, it's like it's very hard to tell because he likes playing the heel. But with Sam Harris, I don't know. I just get a vibe that he's just a good dude. He just seems like a good dude. Yeah. He's very open. He's left leaning again, but is like again friends, kind of friendly with Peterson and Shapiro and Rogan and all of that, like typical. Well, not Rogan, but like you know, more right conservative people who are religious, even though he's one of the main proponents of atheism.
Yeah. Well, he's only been around for not long now, like, and he's really taken that stance. Like he's been famous for that, for the atheistic view. And I haven't seen him before. Like I only got to know him this year. Okay. He's really risen. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think he must have risen in popularity. I'm not sure. Like, I've only been watching him for like just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think his first videos on atheism and stuff were ages ago, dude. 2011. Really? Yeah.
Wow.
Early.
What's this? I can't understand the free will determinism argument. Like, this is my understanding of it. Free will. We think that we are in control of what we do. You know, I can pick up this Yeti and put it down. I'm in control of that. And the determinists say, well, yes, you can, but most, if not all of your actions are already played out for you and they're predetermined.
I'd say I don't actually know the exact definition of determinism, but how, like, I think you've said it pretty accurately. I'd say that I do not believe in free will, but I don't believe in determinism either.
Right.
So I think that there are inherently random processes at an atomic level with like, you know, in the field of quantum mechanics now, we're seeing true randomness. Yeah, and I don't want to go into that, but you really have to look into that if you want to understand like the idea of true randomness at a quantum scale. But even if things are random processes in your brain, you have no control over it. It's in the sense in saying that you don't have free will it's essentially saying that you're a product of the chemicals in your brain communicating with neurons in your brain, communicating with muscles, causing you to act. And as someone who's studying medicine now, it's like it's very hard for me to adopt another point of view. Right.
So it's not the conclusion that your life is already predetermined for you before you're born.
That's very Newtonian.
Right.
It's like you live on a timeline and you're just here on your timeline. I don't agree with that. I feel like there are truly random processes in the universe that cause different environmental occurrences. Yeah. But you still have no control over it. You're affected by your environment. You get stimuli. Your chemicals in your brain respond. The process is sensory, integration, motor. Yeah, that's the fundamental process of your nervous system. So you have sensory neurons, like in your eyes, in your ears, in your skin, that detect stimuli. Data goes into your brain. It gets integrated by other neurons. Yeah, it's essentially a very complex computation, and then you have motor neuron output, which goes back to your muscles, which causes you to do something. You know, it's in that you don't have any control. It's very arrogant to assume that you have like some sort of control over that. And I think that ties back in almost to religion, because it's like people don't want, they look at that in a nihilistic way. They're like, that's terrible. Like that's like, I wouldn't want to think that I'm just a puppet for the chemicals in my brain. So I believe that God has endowed me with this like supreme consciousness that I can like, that I have this spirit that is truly mine and that I can control. And I don't think that you need that for fulfillment. I believe that it's enough. Once again, I'm kind of tying a lot of loose ends here, but it's enough to truly appreciate living in the moment that you're living in. Yeah. Once again, I don't want to harp on about that for too much longer, but it's like, it's not about not making plans, not structuring your life, but it's like appreciating the now when you can. You can have both. Yeah. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think of the whole free will thing?
Yeah, I just took issue with it because I thought that that the deterministic stance took away motivation from people and a desire to get better and to pursue what they want to pursue, because essentially I just interpret it as okay, well, your life is predetermined for you. You don't really have any control of your actions, and you're a byproduct of well, what you say, you're a byproduct of your neurons and your chemicals, right? But I'm like, well, it is very, very tough to wrap my head around that.
It is. It's so tough.
I remember the first time that I came across it was someone very, very smart at work who I work with.
Yep.
And he said, I believe in determinism, and I didn't know what it was. He explained it to me, and I remember for the next 2 weeks I couldn't get it out of my brain. Like I was, it actually made me just angry, and like I don't know.
It can be haunting.
It
can be haunting,
man. I was like, this, for someone who hasn't delved into that is so tough to think that your life is not even controlled by you in the way that you think you control it, right? And I was trying to have conversations with other people, and they were like, I think you just need to look deeper into this to find what you believe. I tried to listen to a podcast, 2 podcasts. One was Sam Harris's thoughts on free will.
Yep.
One was another lady's also thoughts on free will. I think they both came to the same conclusion. But I only could listen to 10 minutes of it. It was haunting.
It is haunting.
I was too afraid to come to the end of the podcast and believe in determinism.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts on it now.
One thing is, I don't think free will and determinism are mutually exclusive either. So can we actually define determinism? Because I don't want to.
Let's do it.
I don't want to harp on about this if I don't actually know what it means. But I think
the doctrine that all events, including human action, are ultimately determined by causes regarded as external to the will.
Oh, okay.
Some
then I believe in
philosophers
determinism.
have taken determinism to imply that individual human beings have no free will and cannot be held morally responsible for their actions. And see, I took deep issue with that too, because, well, that's just stripping everyone from everything, right? I mean, dude, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, I would like to think if someone does something bad, something criminally bad, that they will be held responsible, and that society wouldn't be just blaming their actions on bloody determinism.
I completely agree.
Are you kidding me?
I completely agree. I think that in present state of consciousness, it's not good to just continuously reaffirm the fact that you're a biochemical puppet to your neurons.
No.
But at the same time...
And then you can act on whatever you want to act on and be like, well, it's not my fault.
But the understanding and the awareness that your willingness to follow like societal trends is actually in itself controlled by your environmental stimuli and how it's been integrated in your brain without any will of your own. Like that awareness can still happen, but you've just kind of got to go along with your life. I don't think I think what you're doing, Ati, at the moment is like just being like, this fucking sucks. I like the idea of this is fucking terrible. So I'm just gonna like ignore it and like forget about it. And I think that almost goes that.
It's the first time that something has haunted me to the state that I don't want to learn about it. Yeah.
I'd say so too. It is haunting, but I think it's in the same way that when you flip a coin, people call that random, or if you roll the dice, it's really not.
How so?
It's not. If you have an initial force on the coin, it's angular momentum. You can calculate what the coin lands on every single time, 10 times out of 10.
No, you cannot.
Yeah, you can. 100% can.
There's evidence for that?
You've got machines that can flip a coin in a certain way, and you can adjust the force so it lands on heads or tails. 100%.
Right, but you can't control the force with your own finger
You
every
could,
time.
theoretically. You can't because we don't have the dexterity to. But as in, we can create something that can.
Yeah.
So it's like, if let's say we had a force gauge on the coin that could track how much force my thumb was putting into it, and then we could measure its angular momentum. A computer could tell you before it landed on the ground what it was gonna be. It's just simple physics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
understand.
but in reality, the coin seems completely random to us. We base cricket games on it, sports, everything, casinos, right? It's all based in this randomness, but what it really is pseudo randomness. Yeah. It's random enough for us to believe it, and it's still enjoyable.
Yep.
To believe it, but you've still got to have the awareness that it's not, and that's my view on free will and determinism.
Right.
I think the awareness that realistically, this is now when you look at the brain and the neurons and the nervous system, it's a hell of a complicated coin, right? You've got an unreal number of like combinations and permutations of how if you're talking about a neural network. So the level of pseudo randomness that creates is enough for me to enjoy. That's my view. Right. So I'm sitting there and I'm like I'm sitting here chilling, and I know that if I really think about it, like I'm determined by like all these other factors, but it's random enough, and the pseudo free will is enough of a force in my life that I can just that I'm happy. I'm not haunted by it on a day to day.
Yep.
If I was like continuously reaffirming that idea in my head, which I truly believe is the truth, as of the evidence that we've received, I would be haunted by it. But yeah, I'm just choosing not to do that. I'd pose to you a single argument against the fact that everything's predetermined. It's very hard to find one because it's based purely on science and what we've observed. So the only real opposition to that is God, is that there is a supreme power that is creating some sort of spirit in us and some sort of will that that biology and the environment has no control over. In that case, if that was proven, that would be my belief, but it isn't. There's no proof of that. So I have to, from the information that I have, it's only rational, once again, to take that view on free will that I've got and determinism.
So if someone were to commit a crime, then you would what are we doing? Are we just dubbing all that on their past circumstances and their life prior to that crime? Yeah,
that's a dangerous game to play.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous game to, as once again, push the idea that that free will doesn't exist and that you're thinking about it all the time, so you lose accountability.
Yeah.
Right? But it's kind of like I obviously don't think that. I think the pseudo randomness of reality is good enough that you're not thinking about that as you play the game, if you will.
Yep.
I'd say it's almost like a campaign on Call of Duty. Like you're playing it and you've got you know exactly what's going to happen, right?
Right.
It's fixed in place.
Yep.
But you still play and you still do things as if it was, and you still enjoy it and you still hold yourself accountable. You don't want to die. And I think it's just life is almost just an extremely complicated extension of that. So you still are accountable, in the same way that rolling a dice in a casino is still random, or rolling the roulette wheel.
Yep.
But it's just the awareness and understanding that with current evidence, we have nothing to say that we have any control over what happens in our brain. It's unconscious.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Full stop.
Full stop, dude.
Here we go. I want to ask you about this.
Okay.
I did some research. By the way, I'm gonna look deep into that.
Yeah.
Into
right.
free will and determinism now.
I hope I don't see you see it in the paper. Addy Dave.
Suicide.
Hung himself after pondering on free will.
Oh man.
Boy.
Seriously. Here we go. I read about this the other day. There's three main ways to attain status in society, right?
Okay.
One of them being competence, one of them being dominance, and the other virtuosity, so moral virtue, right? So competence could be categorized as doing something. It's a reciprocal exchange. You perform an act, you get a reward for it. That's competence. It's the most healthy way of achieving status.
Sure.
So
Being intelligent,
exactly.
being athletic.
Yep. Dominance is the most corrupt way. So you exercise power, authority, over someone to try and make them feel like they're less superior to you. Then there's moral virtue, which is being a good person, sacrificing, giving is associated with that a lot. 3 ways, right? The interesting thing for me was that at first I was like, okay, competence is the only good way to go about status attainment, in the sense that you can get rich, but you have to offer something that is valuable to the world.
Yeah.
Dominance, no. And I kind of looked at the moral virtue route with what young people do nowadays, by way of like posting about world tragedies and stuff on their stories.
Yeah.
And like, do they actually care? No, absolutely not. They're just trying to raise their own virtuosity amongst their friends and try and make themselves look better.
Yeah. I'd say quickly to interject there, I don't think it means that they don't care.
Well, they don't care as much as they think they do.
Yeah. The level of care isn't that much, and you can in general, not for everyone, but you can see that in that, like, people post a lot of stuff when the atrocity has happened at the time, or when it's relevant in the media. But not many people are doing that when it's washed over. Like, who's posting about Ukraine these days?
Exactly. I would say it's the most sneakiest route to status attainment.
Yeah.
And almost the easiest one, because it can be, you can deceive a lot of people. You can hide true empathy and true moral virtue behind fake compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
Right? I really struggle with it, and I see that so much with young people now. Is like, well, we're young. We're not at a stage in our life yet where we can achieve status through competence. We're just not there. We don't know enough, and we haven't had enough life experience yet. There obviously are some exceptions to the rule, but so what I see now is it's just a race for power, and it's like, all right, well, how do I get there? You've got these like radical leftists who think they're so empathetic and they think they're for the minorities and they're anti-racist and blah blah blah, and they post all this stuff. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to a power game where they're trying to achieve status. Yeah. That's a difficulty with it that I have.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I've never looked at it through that lens before, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I'd say I don't even know if I agree or not.
Right.
I don't even know if I agree.
Because what I see is just a bunch of virtue signaling. Yeah. And you can think of that as empathy and compassion. Okay, this person's posting about Ukraine or posting about whatever it may be, whatever the world tragedy may be. Yeah. But then if you look broadly and you're like, I don't know if this person really cares that much. Yeah. Whether it's possible to or not, whether our circumstances are so different from the Ukrainians that you and I couldn't empathize more than 10%. That's a different argument. But to try and dish it off as we do, I think that's very problematic, right? And what the radical left game is, it's predicated on power. And so every interaction to the radical leftist postmodernist types is a power game. So they have an interaction and they're like, well, it's just not a normal interaction. It's like, well, that person said this and he was trying to exercise power over me. It's like this identity politics game where, they say white men are at the top, and then it goes brown men, and then it goes white women, and then go brown women. Like, it's all predicated on this game for power and status. And I think that's just a completely corrupt way of looking at the world. That's how the dictators look at the world, bro. When Vladimir Putin and China's president have a meeting.
Xi Jinping,
have a meeting in front of the cameras. They're not actually having a meeting. They're playing up to the cameras. They're puffing their chest out. They're saying what they need to say to attain status. Yeah. And I have a real problem with it. I think it can be masked as this empathy, but it's just not.
Yeah,
Thoughts on that?
Very, 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 very interesting idea.
Right.
There's just so much there.
Yeah.
With the whole story thing, I think reposting stories I always found as like the most useless thing ever.
Oh,
because
big time.
what like
I used to do it too.
and
I figured it out.
I'm
not
probably
long
guilty
ago.
of it. I'd look
Yeah,
through
oh
my
yeah, big
Snapchat,
time.
my Instagram archives, and I might find something that I reposted. But I think I'm trying to put myself into the shoes of that like young man who did that, and I don't think that it was like looking for virtuosity in a way. I think it was just like there was a bit of thing like, oh, everyone's doing it, and I just kind of mindlessly did it, you know. And I'm like, this is terrible. Like I'm seeing it a lot. Like
I may as well post.
Repost, yeah. There was not a lot of thought and complexity that went into that. And I think the way that you've described it now is, I think maybe you're describing the ideal and not the individual. Does that make sense? It's like the idea that's perpetuated through this reposting of stories and all that, not necessarily the individual person who is doing it. Because I know my mates who repost the stories, and I don't think I would never brand them as people who are like power hungry and like looking for virtuosity. But like that, the whole ideal of it, and you know, may kind of align with what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'd honestly have to give it more thought, dude. It's a
interesting,
tricky
hey?
one, and I don't want to talk out of my ass if I, you know. So it's like, but what was your next point?
No, I didn't have a next point,
Okay.
but I was gonna bring up a thing that I heard last week, which was going on politicians. That is, in some sense, what they do, right? Like, there's a reason why you don't really trust politicians, and it's because you don't know if what they're saying is what they believe, or it's just affiliated with their group identity, and it's for votes.
Yeah.
I was in this it was a big moment for this one particular person. I'm not going to say who, but it was like kind of his day, right? And there was people there and there was media there. And anyways, he gave a speech. Someone else gave a speech on his behalf. It was all wrapped up and was there.
Yeah, okay.
And so, and she goes up to him.
Adi Dave podcast getting cancelled very soon, I reckon, yeah?
I was absolutely disgusted, man. She goes up to him, she shakes his hand, and then she just starts spewing a political speech. And I was standing there and I was looking around, and everyone's just like just in their own world, just loving it, because she was talking about, you know, Aboriginal incarceration and the situation in Don Dale at the moment and what's going on with that. And I thought, this is not even vaguely appropriate. There's nothing about this that is appropriate. You can't use this occasion to make a political speech. And I was absolutely horrified, to be honest. And I was like, that she's using Aboriginal people to try and make herself look good at an event that it's not even necessary in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
And
Good luck getting her on the podcast after this,
Adi.
Adi.
Maybe I will. Maybe I'll try and bloody call her out on it.
Cause some controversy, create a fire, eh? That's a, you know. I think you're right. I think as we talked about before, in the public eye, it's very hard to like clearly get your motives out because you have to be so black and white about everything.
Yeah.
So if you're Natasha Files, to be honest, I'm not going to pretend that I know like the political systems in Darwin, which I probably should. But I reckon her beliefs, she's just trying to concur with the beliefs of the majority of her supporters, which tend to be at this point in like she probably doesn't believe.
Labour.
And it's the same with any politician in that way. Like they need to get supporters, they need to get votes.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but can you really blame them? Because that's the way to win. Like it's very hard to. I think in the end we agree that politicians get in and then do whatever the fuck they want. So I think their method of winning is disgusting in some ways, but it's required. Because you have people with pure rationality, they're not going to get votes. Because I think that in the general population, especially in America, dude, the general population in America lacks rationality. You know, I think that there are extremists and there's like a lot of opposition and division, and it's like there's just a big competition between the left and the right, and like, so politicians have to cater for that. So is it the fault of them, or is it the fault of society? Is it the fault of the voters? You know, it's like, it's the same thing with like big companies. You know, and if you think something that a big company is that a big company is doing something unethical, don't buy their products. Like, it's like, if the consumer or the voter in the end is the problem, not the people who are catering for that. You know, I think that's a fundamental belief of mine. An interesting one with the consumer thing, not to divert off topic,
Go on.
but like, people were posting about the sweatshops in China, which look fucking terrible, to be honest, unethical, but in the Twitter post, it said posted from an iPhone.
Yeah,
in the bottom.
It's just
I'm
horrific,
like, you're
man.
foolish. You're
It's
absolutely
like, it's like the people who complain about capitalism from an iPhone.
Yeah.
It's like, get a load of yourself.
Yeah.
It's so ungrateful beyond belief.
Yeah.
And I understand the point that you should be able to criticize, you know, things that you believe are issues in the world. But I take issue, and I've also realized this recently. I take issue with the victim mentality, especially in the West. You know, we have so many privileges. I don't care what skin color, gender, ethnicity you are. You know, if you're living in the West and you've got a stable income, you've got good house, you've got water, you've got food, it just isn't anything to make you scream victimhood or victim. I take real issue with it. What I realized is I'm happy to listen to people's problems, because everyone has problems. Suffering is attendant upon everyone.
And talking about your problems is beneficial. It's not,
of course,
yeah,
right. The only time where I'm not willing to listen to people's problems is when they blame the world for their suffering. Like, they blame capitalism, they blame men, they blame whatever it may be. Like, that's when I'm like, this is it just, I don't know, something bothers me about it. Like you can't have it both ways. You can't blame the world and then, you know, try and dish it off as, oh, you've got all these problems, and that you expect people to listen to you.
Yeah. The whole blaming the world thing, I've got two quotes that I really live by here. One of them is control the controllables. I truly believe that. I'm like, if I'm ever affected by anything, if I'm in a stressful environment, and this extends to if you've been dealt a bad hand in something, right? Control the controllables. Yeah. Yep. There's no point complaining, attributing everything to your misfortune. It's sad, but it's not going to get you you're not going to actually get out of that position from doing that. Control what you can control. What can you do about it? You know, that's number one. Don't you agree? I feel like that's
big time. It's so authentic to say, this happened to me, but through improvement and betterment, maybe it won't happen to me in the future. And it was a result of my failures this time that it did happen. But this is the easier way to go about it. This happened to me. It was because of what the world has done, and I couldn't help it. Right? That's completely inauthentic and just lacking any form of accountability at all.
Lacking a growth mindset. Yeah?
Exactly. So,
and on the topic of growth mindsets, another one that kind of ties into this is there is no point being like an idealist. Yeah, at least not. I'll rephrase that. There's no point being a vocal idealist when you're an absolute bum. Yeah, and I mean that to myself right now. I have a lot of ideals.
We're nobody.
You are.
Yeah.
We're absolute bums in the grand scheme of things.
Yep.
Complaining about things. Yeah, and something that my dad, and that's a harsh view, but that's kind of what I tell myself. That's my own kind of self thoughts going on here. And people who complain about like the systems and all that, you can complain about it. The other way that you can do is become successful, amass wealth, and then go and do something about it with your influence that you've gained. Isn't that a much more positive way to look about something instead of complaining in someone's backyard over a bloody bottle of wine and fucking some crackers, dude? Exactly. Like, that's just pointless. It's like, I'm once again, this ties back to rationality. It's like, I agree with a lot of things that you're saying, but you're sitting there and doing nothing. Like, you're doing nothing about it. Like, you're just complaining. You're whinging. Yeah, and I hate whingers. So, yeah.
Yeah, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world.
Yeah.
Is one of Pearson's rules.
That's it. Yeah. Which, sorry, no, you go. Yeah. So I was going to say that with Peterson, it's a fucking he look like, I reckon he needs to take a bit of his own advice in that regard. The man looks sickly, dude. He looks
elderly now.
He looks elderly, frail. He looks
yeah.
you know, he had that benzodiazepine addiction as well.
Yeah.
And then he's on this only meat diet.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's a gust of wind will blow him over, dude. And I'm like, that in his book, that was a chapter of his book. And I think he needs to, honestly, Peterson, if you're listening to this, you need to listen to your own advice, my friend. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something just so fulfilling about taking accountability for your life.
Yep.
Which is what I like. But also, if you're criticizing the world and you're purporting those views onto your friends, you're giving other people, you're stripping other people's responsibility from their lives. There's nothing good about it. You know, like, if you do something wrong, then you should know that it is because of you. If something bad happens to you, then you should always know that you can do something to make it better.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't like the view, and there's issues, man, like, you know, that people talk about, like the pay gap and the difference between salaries in men and women, and, you know, racial bias in employment or whatever. I don't really look at it that way. I don't look at what barriers are in my way of achieving what I want to achieve. I kind of have the view that I can achieve whatever I want to achieve, and I'm happy to outwork anyone. And no matter how much higher they are than me, I'm willing to do the extra to get on top of them, and I'm not going to complain about it. That's so much a better view. And if you are, you know, a part of a minority group or whatever, fair enough. You may have these barriers, but talking about it doesn't help.
Yeah.
Doesn't help you at all. Like, and complaining about it certainly doesn't help you. I would say that once you do reach that desired position or the dream job or whatever, and you've gone through all those barriers, then people look at you in awe almost. They're like, wow, you know, this guy reached it beyond all expectations, and that's rewarding. It's not rewarding to just complain and be like, well, I'm not here because of this and because of capitalism and patriarchy and oppression, and I really don't like that.
So I think that there needs to be a clear distinction between your actions and your awareness in that point, right? I think it would be foolish to let's say we lived in a racist country that was oppressive, yeah? It would be foolish to tell yourself that there is no oppression. You'd want to register that. But then that idea of, well, this isn't going to, it doesn't matter, because if I want to be successful, I have to push through it. Yeah. There's no point complaining about it and just, you know, until you are a success and then can actually do something to change it. So I don't mean to be like uncaring, but like a good example is like the Rothschilds. You know, they were like the wealthiest people in the world at one point, Jewish banker family. Right. So the first like Rothschild, I forgot his first name, but he lived in a city where, like, I'm trying to think where it was. I can't actually remember which city. But anyways, the government over there secluded all the Jews. They had to live in this one area. And they were confined to like such a small place. And it was like terrible. It was like houses on houses on houses right next to each other, not proper like plumbing or anything. And they just had to live there and kind of figure it out because of the prejudice against Jews at the time. Yeah. And what he started doing was like, he just didn't care. This was the construct of society that has been built. Yeah. You're not going to change that by sitting there complaining about it and feeling bad for yourself. I think that's the sentiment that we're getting across. We're not saying it shouldn't be changed, but what he did was he started like loaning people money and created one of the largest banks in history. He was estimated, I think, to be like a trillionaire in today's value, like extreme generational wealth. Yeah. Like the Rothschilds still exist today, and I think the banks still exists. Yeah. And so he's come out of that absolute segregation and race, and it isn't racism, but prejudice.
Racial prejudice.
Yeah, it's not race though.
Ethnic? I don't know.
Something like Theocrist or some shit. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, something like that. But prejudice against his beliefs and his religion, right? And Yeah, essentially, he's came through that. Instead of, I doubt I couldn't imagine Rothschild complaining, sitting at his house about the unfairness. He would have recognized it. That would have been there, but he became such a powerful force that governments were asking him for money. That's how he ended up making all his money, and it became like. Have you watched Game of Thrones?
No.
Okay, but it's like the Iron Bank in Game of Thrones for any throners who watch this. But it's like it was getting to the point where if the Rothschilds supported a country in a war, they'd win the war.
Really?
Yeah, it was that much. It was like they were getting like government bonds of such high value that whole nations were just in debt to this Jewish dude who was who was brought up in such a prejudiced environment.
Yeah.
And I would be hard pressed to find a single person in Australia today who was as like unfairly treated as that Rothschild was at the start of his life. Yeah. So I think that I'm not saying that, like, obviously there were a bunch of Jews who at the time who were killed and didn't have that opportunity, but there is no value in constantly brainwashing yourself into thinking society's against you, because that's anti-growth. Yeah. And I think I know like we disagree on this. I think there are still subconscious prejudices to women in the workplace.
No, of course we agree on that, bro.
Oh, we agree on that.
Yeah,
okay. I 100% believe that like there are those subconscious prejudices. I don't think there are male oppressors like sitting smoking cigars in a meeting room anymore. Like saying, dude, okay, what's the plan to push women down in society? But I think that they're like, if people are like going into a job interview, there are those biases that creep in. But the last thing I want to do is brainwash my daughter into thinking the world is against her.
Exactly.
And making her think that like you've got to be fighting this.
Exactly.
This is something that you have to fight and stand up for. I'd say be aware of it. Don't let yourself be pushed around. There is a tendency for men to have subconscious biases about women in the workplace. Especially my girlfriend right now is studying civil engineering, male-dominated field. So it's the same kind of thing goes. It's like, be aware of it, but I don't want you to think that you're like fighting for your freedom or something. It's just detrimental. You're going to be in this defensive, like a porcupine, defensive state all the time, and that's not suitable for like growing as a person or growing a career. I genuinely believe
that's the problem I have with ideologies in some sense, is that especially like that, like yes, there are biases that you may face, but so does everyone.
Yeah,
you know, and you can overcome them. It's not like there's nothing you can do to overcome those biases. And the problem I have that the people that do subscribe to these ideologies are like enforcing it upon other people. And so I'm terrified of having a daughter. And I'm like, well, you can do everything you want to do in your life. You just got to work hard enough to get there. Yeah. And then all her friends, all the school teachers around, which is what they're doing now, it's like telling her that, you know, you've got this bias and this prejudice, and white men are against you and the world is against you and you are oppressed. Yeah. I just don't think that's true or helpful in any way.
I feel like for her in that case, I feel bad. I genuinely feel sympathy in a way, because she will always have that on her mind whenever, if she is ever in a position, and let's say there is no bias involved. Let's assume a perfect world where a man was picked over her for a certain position. Like, there is always going to be thought in her mind, because there's been that thing perpetuated on women that you're going to be facing this tidal wave in society. Yeah. There are these men that are trying to push you down, that don't want to see you succeed. And so she's going to be thinking every time that she doesn't get a position, a thought's going to be in their mind, even if they're the most rational women in the world. Even if they're extremely rational, there's a thought like, if I was a man, would I get that role? And I feel like for us as the brown boys, like I'm sure that the thoughts crossed your mind as well. Bro. Yet whenever you don't get something, you think, was that because I was brown? Was that because of the color of my skin? And then especially because like Indian people moving away from, I feel like I can say that about women, because the same thing applies for race. I'm not just saying it's gender, it's race as well. I think that I realize that I would be aware of it, that some people were going to be racist, but my goal is to reach a point where there is no doubt. There can be no doubt.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly. Same with me.
Yeah.
You should have a complete certainty that despite any bias, you will get it because you've earned it.
Yep.
And if you have earned it fully, you will get it.
Yep. I want to, as you said, I want to leave it beyond like a question of a doubt. And so to remove those subconscious biases altogether.
Yep.
And then when I get there and when I make it, I'll push for whoever like is in the workplace or who is under me, to not have those biases, right? Nothing convinces someone more of competence and removes stereotypes than someone in a high position that they've earned.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like in terms of having an African American president. Yeah. I think the African American population in America is 13% or something low like that.
Yeah.
But he got the majority of the votes. Clean sweeps both times. So there is nothing like having the majority of white people vote for you. Like there's nothing that supports the African American community more than having an African American president who's gone to Harvard Law, and I think he went to Harvard, but he graduated from Columbia.
Yeah.
But so someone who's hyper successful, been through the process, and now is the president, completely earned through his hard work.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that was before a lot of the affirmative action stuff as well. Like, not saying that that's undeserved, but I think he made it purely on his ability.
Yeah.
So
also, affirmative action what is that? Like, give me a summary.
I'm no expert again, but it's essentially these social protocols that push up the African American community and allow them to allow people with lower grades to gain entrance into like Harvard and stuff like that. It's essentially creating a quota. It's a quota. It's done in Australia with the Indigenous people.
Yeah.
It's done in India with the schedule caste. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
But it's like it's very common, and it's I'm not necessarily against it. I think that there needs to be a lot more action at like grassroots level, rather than just saying, okay, you can get like for medicine as well. You need, as of when I last checked, to get into the Melbourne Uni program, which is the same as UQ in terms of undergrad, postgrad med. You needed a 99.9 ATAR for a guaranteed entry. If you're Indigenous, you needed a 99 ATAR. I mean, a 90 ATAR, excuse me. A 90 ATAR versus a 99.9. And like, I like struggle to fathom, to understand that. Like, a problem with affirmative action though, also, is that the people who make use of it are often the ones who aren't in need of affirmative action. You know? It's like Indigenous people who, like, I'm not saying that it makes you any less Indigenous to you may still be involved in like Indigenous culture and stuff, but it's like these wealthy people who are like, who have the exact same opportunities as the rest of us, but just have the bar set lower for them. I find it almost insulting.
It is insulting, bro. Like I wouldn't want to think that I'm getting a helping hand because that's not rewarding.
It's not rewarding.
I would rather
it's less rewarding.
It's less rewarding, big time. I would rather just do it on my own without any quotas set for me. Like that's almost not demoralizing, but patronizing.
It's patronizing. It's condescending.
It's condescending, big time. To be like, you need so much assistance and aid. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening, man. Like, everyone's being told that they're a victim.
Yeah.
And like, it's somehow by these, that by these elites that have made it and that they've told them. But it's like, oh, here we go, pat me on the head more. Talking about the oppression thing, you made a great point. People, like, when they subscribe to these ideologies, they think like for example, I've met a few feminists. I'm not going to attribute all of this to feminism, but there's a few where like, I hate all men, or like, I don't value men.
Yeah.
I've heard that. And essentially the thought with that is, well, men are the oppressors. I would combat that by saying, I don't think men working on roofs and power lines and in the waters doing impossible jobs, being plumbers, are working in the day in extremely hard conditions, being like, I'm going to go home and oppress my wife and daughter tonight.
No,
I think it's like, I'm going to provide food and family and I'm doing this to aid them and so that we can actually live. And I think what's happening is they're taking a small substrata of men who may be, misogynistic and power-driven and wanting to oppress, and attributing that to all of male society, which is, I think there's nothing appropriate about that at all, because most of my friends looking around, you know, most of them are white. Most of them are great people who you know, love their families, care for their families, would help anyone out when they're in need. And I just couldn't imagine being like, yep, you're an oppressor. It doesn't fathom or compute in my brain.
I agree with you to some extent, and I disagree in some ways. So I think when it comes to an argument that's made like with sexual assault is like there's always it's not all men kind of thing that men often say. I was one of them who said that as well. But like someone made a great point. It's like if you obviously know it's not all men, you know? Like, and the exact point that was made, it's like if you said that that watch out for mosquitoes because they have malaria, yeah? You obviously know you don't mean that all mosquitoes have malaria, right? Like only a select, maybe 0.1% of mosquitoes have malaria, if that, right? But you have that, because of that threat, you have this fear of all mosquitoes, right?
Right.
And, you know, this, you know, not to be anti-men and say that all men are mosquitoes, but in terms of the sexual assault and rape space, the amount of people who I've heard from who are like my good friends who have such similar ideologies to me. So I'm not talking like the extreme left. I'm talking about women who are like very much like grounded in rationality and like are not playing the victim at all, like are in no way playing the victim, hyper successful in uni, like going into successful careers. And they have talked to me about how they've been sexually assaulted. And like, I have no reason to not believe them. It's not like they're telling many people. It's like just one-on-one. And I'm obviously not going to tell stories, but it's like you hear that and then I completely understand the uncomfortable feeling about like, you know, and the fear that you have to live with around all men. It's like, it's something that is created by a small few, but it needs to be thought of as the whole population because of the danger that it possesses in the sexual assault space. Yeah.
Well, I would say to those men, stop ruining it.
Yeah.
Stop ruining it.
Exactly.
Off.
Exactly. But it's a relatively high proportion of men, dude. That's the thing.
No, it's not. That sexually assault.
High, or maybe not high.
It's a very small.
Higher than you think.
Especially, what are we talking? We're not talking. It's less than 10%, 15% must be.
I'm saying even if it was 1%.
Right.
That's in a room. If you go into 3 rooms of people, you might be sitting there with a rapist, which is not like, it's a scary concern. Like it's like, I'm not saying 10% would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually rooting this in my own statistics, by the way. So like, you know, I'm
we
like
Joe
Rogan. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, basing this off the women that I've talked to.
Yep.
And it's like somewhere down the line. Think about as a woman.
Oh, dude,
if it was 0.1%, right? So that's one in 1,000. Yeah. Let's say you'd probably see 1,000 people in a week, especially at uni. Yeah. You're walking around. You're going into the city. You're going to clubs. You're going partying. You've probably seen 1,000 people in a week, maybe 2 weeks. So you would have encountered someone who could rape you in 2 weeks, within 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. So it's like, imagine that. Imagine if you knew that you were going to see a serial killer, like a Jeffrey Dahmer, every 2 weeks. You'd have an irrational fear towards all men. So that understanding has definitely grown on me a bit.
Right.
But I don't think that extends to like all men are oppressive in a workplace. Yep. Like just because some men are oppressive doesn't like you don't have to fear all men in that case because it's not as like
they're out to get you.
Yeah, it's you can rationalize that not all men are like oppressive in that case because it's not like life or death, you know? It's not like to the extent of being raped. So I feel like there is more of a realm for rationality of like the small amount of men that are doing something wrong when it goes to less trivial issues. But as the issue becomes less trivial, as the issue becomes less trivial, it's fair enough that there is that fear and that stigma around the entire population.
Yep.
And I have understanding for that, but it all depends on how serious the issue is, I'd have to say.
Well, yeah. If I had a daughter, I'd be frightened of that.
Yeah.
That would be my thought on it.
So frightened, so protective too.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
So yeah, I do understand. I do empathise.
Yeah.
But I do take issue with categorising one whole population, 50% of the world,
Yeah.
with those atrocities. You know, I think that's unhealthy.
I think that's the key thing that like people who are pushing this idea need to understand is that you can have awareness and know that, okay, it's not unreasonable to be wary around all men. Let's say you're at a nightclub. Not every single man at a nightclub is out to sexually assault you, but there are people there that are. So it's like you have the awareness and you're careful. And I apologize on behalf of men, I guess, that women have to go through that because that sucks. But at the same time, that precaution doesn't mean that you have to have in your mind that all men are out to get you. I feel like they're distinct.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just one second. Can I take a quick break? I got to go
Take a quick break, mate.
Maybe.
All right. Sweet. We're back up.
Perfect.
I wanted to talk to you about this. The obesity crisis. What do you reckon? Body positivity movement.
Yeah. Absolutely no way. There's the whole. I think there's one thing about being ashamed of your body. I think that's not necessarily the most positive way to go about it. But definitely not like saying that that it's perfectly normal and it's okay to be obese. That sentiment I'm very much against. Yeah, what do you think about it?
I think the self-love component of it is odd because it's sort of like self-love without earning it. And I don't agree with that because I think if you really want to come to self-love and self-acceptance, you have to earn it, right? You have to work out. You have to... It's not fun working out, you know? It's hard. It's tough work. And it's not fun going for runs. But these are things that make you earn an appreciation for your body.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's automatically just overnight, oh, look at Lizzo, you know, she's promoting this. She loves herself. She's fat. So I can too. I don't think that happens with everyone. And I think if you try and make yourself believe that you do, it's delusional in some sense.
Oh, it is delusional. I'm a believer that obesity, like a drug abuse condition, like if you're addicted to heroin, and any other like disease should be treated in the same way. I don't think anyone with a disease of any kind, no one is like saying that we need to promote positivity for this disease.
Exactly.
You have to promote acceptance. Like no one, if someone is struggling with like a drug addiction or is trying to quit smoking, no one berates them or like shames them. And it's proven not to work. So in the same way, it's like purposefully like and maliciously like shaming someone for being fat isn't going to make them any thinner.
No.
You know, you've got to give them like, if you have a friend who is overweight and wants to lose weight, you've got to be supportive, but you can't close the curtains and say that it's fine to be where you are because it's not. But you still support them in every way. Be their gym buddy. Be the one who says, let's go for a run today. Let's not eat out today. Yeah, be tough on them. Hold them accountable. As we were talking about things that can hold people accountable, right? Be that external source of accountability for your friend. And it's like that's not like the fact that view is seen as negative is just beyond me. Because for me, that's compassion. Yeah. That's true compassion. Yeah. It's not blinding the truth. And then, okay, people would say that not all fat people die. Like sometimes a skinny person will have a heart attack. But like in general, statistically, you are way more prone to all these diseases if you're obese. It's just a fact of science at the moment. So it's like...
We've already discovered the area, but now they're trying to scrap that all and come up with their own theory.
I feel like it's if it was anything else, yeah, the absurdity would be at show. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it was if it was a broken leg, yeah, or if it was something like that, it would, no one's going to say, oh, we need to like support people in their like in accepting the fact that they've got a broken leg and that it's perfectly fine. It's not. It's not. It's a disease. Obesity is a disease. And addiction to food is a true addiction. Yeah.
And it's a tough addiction
It's a
to
tough
battle.
addiction, yeah.
And trying to like, tell people that it's okay to be that is so harmful, man. The thing that I love about my friends at the moment is they're so hard. Well, we're all so hard on each other, like to the point it's like bullying. It's in group bullying.
Yeah.
It's absolutely munted.
Internal bullying.
Bro,
Bullying.
Like when someone's gaining a few kilos, we let them know, or when they're looking.
Yeah.
It's and some people be like, that's not good at all. That's toxic. But I think we're just honest. We're just honest with each other, and we all know that we want each other to be better at the end of the day. We don't want to push anyone down or anything like that. And if we did, we would hide what we truly thought from them and be like, you're okay the way you are, bro. Like, don't worry, if we didn't want them to get better. That's what I see from this body positivity movement. So I'm so grateful that I have those friends. Like sometimes, man, we bring each other to near tears. Like, it's tough. But at the end of the day, I think we're all improving, and it's unreal.
With the body positivity stuff, as I said before, it's like you've got to draw. It's a balance. No, it's not black and white. It's if you go to the extreme level of like shaming someone, it depends on the person as well. I think in boy groups, like we have a culture of like just direct, unnecessary honesty.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. As you said, I'm like even me and my best mate, like we would be so harsh on each other, and we end up being each other's external accountability, right? But at the same time, if you're talking to someone else who is already aware and insecure, there's no point flogging the dead horse in a way.
No.
It's like I think most rational obese people know that they're obese and that they need to lose weight. They don't need people saying that it's A-okay to be obese, but at the same time, they don't need people telling them that they're fat fucks and that get on the treadmill and just bullying them. Because that's just shown to just, if someone, that causes depression. Yep. And if someone's depressed, they're not going to be, it's exponentially harder to make the steps to become a healthier person. So is shaming the answer? No. Is saying it's okay? Absolutely not. I think you've got to find a fine line of compassion somewhere in the middle.
There is roots of it, which is actually trying to, look after or be nice to people who have obesity.
Yeah,
it's not all just I'm trying to bloody diminish my competition, or like this evil thing that I want people to be unhealthy, but I want to disguise it in compassion. It's not that. There is some roots of it which is actually genuinely trying to do good.
Yeah.
Which is what you said. Like a lot of it's like, well, stop shaming fat people. Fair enough, Like if you're being overly mean to them, there's no need to when they probably already know.
Most people know.
Oh, 100%.
I think
unless you're bloody delusional.
This is almost like it's a bias that's talked about. It's like when something's really prevalent in the media, people think about it a lot more. It's like there's I was reading something the other day, and it's like people think that gun violence is a huge threat in America because it's on the news all the time. I'm not a fan of everyone having guns. That's a separate debate. But it's like it's the bias of it being present in the news all the time and people hearing about it all the time that people think it's a big issue.
Yeah.
I think that there's this huge controversy surrounding these like plus size models and stuff, which by the way, the plus size model has like a purpose, and I'll go into that later. But I think all the controversy around that has really made people forget that the majority of fat people know that they're fat.
Yeah.
And they're wanting to lose weight.
And I
think
feel
they're
bad
most
for them,
rational,
genuinely. Like, that would be tough, man, to be insecure about your body.
It would be tough. It would be tough. But if it's like I've had kind of the opposite. I'll quickly go to the plus size model things.
Yep.
I think that it's good to have models of all shapes and sizes if it's for a clothing brand, because it's like if someone's going to buy clothes from your brand, it's maybe not like the models on the front page of Vogue, right? Yeah, but because like
to see how you would fit in the clothes
in like a clothing like inventory or whatever, or at a shop when you're going through clothes, why not have like someone who is plus size or is obese, or maybe not obese but like a little bit overweight, because it's like if you're purchasing clothes, like if you look at the amount of people who are overweight now, people want to see how they actually look in those clothes.
Yeah.
So I think it has that functional purpose that I'm not against at all. I'm against like the portrayal that it's like that it's a-okay to be completely comfortable with your body as an obese person, which it's not. But yeah, what I was gonna go back and say is I've kind of gone through the other thing with some of my mates at college who, instead of being obese, are like exceedingly skinny. You know, I haven't had like and obviously like everyone puts in a few pounds every now and then, but I haven't actually, like, other than my old man who's a bit, you know, got a bit of a paunch going on. I haven't really like tried to make a diet plan for anyone or anything. Like I haven't experienced that yet, but it's like with my friends who are skinny, they've come out of school, they've never worked out in their life. They're not really athletes. Like they're not in sport. And I think that I've tried my very best to, like, I've told them straight up, I'm like, dude, like, you're fucking skinny. Like it's, you don't need to care about it, but you're a good looking guy, like get some muscle on you and you'll look good. Like it's a positive thing. Like I tell them, I'm like, this is how you look, but come to the gym, I'll help you out. Get on some creatine, eat some more food, and you'll be fine. And I think it's a big positive thing. And we create that, like, that positive gym culture, as Joey Spall would say. And
yeah, what a legend that guy is.
Yeah, fucking love that guy.
But they also trust you if you do that, if you're honest about them. Because if you've got someone who's already insecure about their body, and then someone tells them, no, you're okay the way you are, well, it's like, no, you know, I already know that I'm not really okay the way I am.
What else are they lying about at that point?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, you know, I don't know what you're not telling me. Whereas if you're just honest with them and you just tell them the way it is, they're going to trust you way more and you're going to bond way more as well.
I'd say this goes back to what we were saying about politicians and mistrust in politicians.
Yep.
Diplomacy and deception go hand in hand. Yeah. And I think that's what we're seeing here. It's like if you see if someone's fat and overweight and you go, no, you are A-okay, there is nothing wrong with it. Like, what else is this person lying about? Like, I want my inner circle, my tightest knit. And this is the key thing. I'm not going to go around like telling fat people they're fat. That's just a dick move. That's cruel. It's cruel. It's like I'm talking like inner circle of friends here, and like the culture that I'm like trying to create in my friend group is like, if someone is overweight, like I'll tell them if they're my inner circle close friends, and I'm like, dude, like what are we going to do about it? Like, I'm living with you. Let's it's one of my roommates, which it isn't, but let's say it is. I'll say, look, I'm living together. We can meal prep together. We can work on that. We can count calories together. By the way, I'm intermittent fasting. I'd say I'm a pretty healthy individual. I'm intermittent fasting right now, and I'm loving it. So, and it's not really purely for dietary reasons. I mean, not purely for like losing fat. It is a little bit, but yeah. Have you heard of intermittent fasting?
Yeah, I have. Haven't tried it though.
You haven't tried it?
No.
Okay.
Is it good?
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I came back home from college after exams, just a bit not fat. Like it was like a little bit of like
had a bit of kgs,
had a bit of kgs on me. Like I think I was around 84, and I think there's definitely like I want to look good. Like I want to look if I take it may seem vain, but it's just the truth. It's just the truth of the matter. I think most people would agree. Yeah.
It's healthy to look good.
And it's like, I also noticed another thing was that I was snacking a lot. I'd be eating, like, I'd always be looking in my drawers for like snacks, like chips, all of that. And I'd be just munching them. And what that does is it like, you have a spike in your blood sugar levels when you do that. Yeah. And then it just drastically drops, especially when you have those foods that aren't actually rich in like the macros that you need.
Right.
So I wanted to avoid that.
Yeah.
But this comes down to like control, and I find it very difficult to like, I find it very difficult to moderate. I find it easy to remove.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, like, because I think having something black and white is simpler when it's a routine, right? So with intermittent fasting, I'm doing the 16 to 8, like, you know, 16-hour fasting period, 8-hour eating period. And I'm still having like most of my calories per day, but it's like I'll have breakfast at 9:30, which will be like an egg, a boiled egg, at work. So I'll just be there eating my egg. Then I'll have a big lunch. My lunch could be around 600 calories, and then a big dinner at 5:30. So as soon as I get home. And the thing is, I'm so full from my meals that I will not even consider picking up a snack.
Really?
No, I just can't. And it's like,
how many calories is your dinner?
It may be close to like 900
Yeah.
to 1,000. I wouldn't know exactly. I was calorie counting before.
Yeah.
But I think the calorie count is kind of underestimated a bit as well. Like maybe my lunch is a bit more too. I'd say I'm averaging around 2,200 calories a day.
Yep.
So that math might not add up, but there are little things. I might have a banana, an apple, a couple cups of tea. That's calories, you know.
Yep.
And I think that 2,200 calories without like playing sport, and I'm still losing weight. I'm still losing weight. And there's a very, very interesting research article that I read, which was like intermittent fasting is often associated with like older age people. Like my mum intermittent fasts, and I always looked at it as something like, you know, like losing the Christmas calories for the old ladies kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But it's really not. There was a very interesting research article that I don't know. Maybe we can tag it somewhere, but whatever.
Yeah.
It analyzed 30 regular gym goers, and by regular they needed to be training at a gym for at least 5 years. And just to get the benchmark statistics, everyone in that group averaged a bench press of around 107 kilos.
Yep.
So they're all like fit, like proper strong,
Yep.
been gymming for a while. And they split the group into two, had half of them doing intermittent fasting, half of them on a regular diet, and exact same calorie intake per day.
Yep.
Which is very interesting. So, and it was found that in terms of fat loss, the intermittent fasting group lost way more fat.
Right.
Yeah, and even with the exact same caloric intake, isn't that bizarre? Because you always think about like, oh, it's just about a calorie deficit, but that showed that there's a temporal aspect to fat loss as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, what the idea behind it is that you're burning through your glucose stores and your glycogen stores in your liver, which is just accessible form of glucose. And what happens is then you can burn your adipose tissue, your fat, right?
Yep.
It starts breaking it down. And that's what happens in that fasting period. It allows you to break down the glycogen and then move on to the fat tissue. Whereas in a regular eating routine, you burn through your glycogen and then you just eat again and store it up again.
Right.
Yeah. So what's happening is you're reaching that like a depleted glycogen level,
Yeah.
and then your body is burning fat when you're just sitting around.
Yep.
You know? And
Gotcha.
I find that especially with the 16 to 8 cycle, it's quite easy to maintain. I'd say when I wake up in the morning is when I'm hungry. I'm
Yep.
like, I kind of want brekkie now, but it's all right. I wait till 9:30, have my brekkie, boom,
And you chill.
and I'm chill. And I've noticed like, I'd say that a big thing for it is like, I've never cut in my life. I've never monitored my weight at all. And I'm like, I just want to get shredded for once. Like I want to have a go. I just want to like get shredded and see how it is. But I wanted it to be a routine that I could maintain.
Yep.
Not something that was like me, like I didn't want to be hungry all the time.
Yep.
Because once again, that goes back to moderation rather than like, you know, this is black and white. When I'm fasting, I can't eat anything. I drink water. That's it. And when I'm eating, I can eat whatever. I eat until I'm full.
Yep.
But also another factor is you can't eat that much within 8 hours. Like you eat till when you're full, you're just full.
Yeah.
That's it. And I've noticed that days when I've broken my fast, like it's not that strict. Like if I'm going out and stuff, like when I say it's not that strict, I mean like if on New Year's Eve I broke my fast. Yeah. Like, and on those days, I remember New Year's Day I came back. We went out to Lake Bennett for a quick trip. Came back, and I ate my usual order at KFC, and I couldn't finish it. I threw away half of it.
Wow.
Because appetite is a mental thing.
Yep.
It's not a physical thing. You don't need food. Your body can last 30 days without food.
Yep.
Appetite and hunger are all responses from your hypothalamus that have just been created through your lifestyle.
Right.
So
right.
I'm really monologuing here, but I'll get to my point. This ties back finally to the plus size model thing. It's like you can create a system that someone who I'd consider myself quite healthy is adopting out of their own free will when they didn't really need to. And I'm putting it into place and I'm reducing my hunger level and my want to eat all these snacks. And I'm like, so can anyone, you know?
Yep.
And I think that's a much more positive and compassionate way to go about it than closing the curtains on the issue and saying, you know,
Everyone
it is what
can-
it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Big time. Dude, I've tried bulking recently. I'm doing opposite, trying to gain weight. And it is hard. Oh my God. Have you tried it? Have you tried a bulk?
I've never tried a bulk because I never wanted to
gain weight.
I think I've been a bit fortunate in like if I train progressively, I'll get bigger.
Yeah.
And I think I do have naturally I had a big appetite.
Yeah.
Like I'd say back when I was not intermittent fasting, I would have been consuming 3,000 calories a day.
Yep.
And that was obviously when I was playing sport and stuff as well, like regularly and like running and all of that. But I haven't tried a pure bulk. If I stick to my normal lifestyle, I'll kind of gain muscle, which is I'm thankful for. But you must have a super fast metabolism, dude. Like it must be something like that.
Maybe, yeah. It's bloody hard. Like, to be fair, I haven't my whole life I haven't eaten that much. Like,
okay, never a big eater.
No, never. This is the first time. So my diet at the moment is wake up 2 bacon and eggs in the morning with a oat smoothie.
Okay.
So 2 sachets of oats, bananas, mangoes, milk, honey, and it's the big one. So it's 3 glasses just about down that. You're full for the whole day just about from that. And then morning tea is like a protein bar, which honestly could be classified as a whole meal. That's how full that protein bar makes you. And then some yogurt, and then a fairly decent lunch, nothing in the afternoon, and then a big dinner. So it equals out to about 2,700 calories a day, which is, I think, good for me because that's a progressive overload over time. But, oh, man, I feel sorry for skinny guys who are trying to gain weight.
There are a few of them too.
I
know a lot of fellas at the moment who are like that. And it's a constant grind.
Oh.
And you think that that's not a problem, but it actually is. It's like, it's a big thing. It's like, I know a guy back at my college who bulking, like looking good, looking bigger, gets influenza, 1 week loses 10 kilos.
Oh, it's
Boom.
so stiff.
It's
man.
so stiff.
That's what I'm frightened
of.
It's
a little push, and then if those people like yourself with fast metabolism, it sucks because you're back to square one, and then you have to start it all over again. It's like
I'm frightened of getting like a tummy bug or something, and just being out for a week, and I'll lose all that weight.
Yeah,
it'd be ridiculous.
I think how are you training? Like what sort of
once 5 times a day.
Five times a week. Yeah.
5 times a week. Sorry, 5 times a day would be elite. Once a day for 5 days a week.
5 days a week. Yeah. Okay. And are you doing like what sort of rep range and stuff? Like
10 to 12.
10 to 12. Okay.
Yeah.
So the
not going too heavy.
Yeah.
I understand that's not the way to gain muscle. Oh well, it is actually because it's hypertrophy.
Higher repetitions, lower weight is more hypertrophy, right?
Yep.
But it's like I think like bodybuilders and stuff, they do like up to 20 reps per set and stuff, whereas like strongmen and all that do like maybe even 3 to 4.
2 3 reps. Yeah, it's very little. But that's just primarily for strength.
For strength, yeah. Which is because doing those 2-3 reps, like I'm like a little bit confused about the science, even though I'm studying this shit. I should know.
Yeah,
I'm in my maths degree, so I'm excused. But it's like you're still working your muscle in terms of you're still lifting a heavy load.
Yeah,
but you're not getting that extreme blood flow, which causes hypertrophy, which means that you're not compromised for your next set. So you're lifting a heavy load, and you're still like, tearing your muscle in a way, but it's not causing the pump, which is related to size. So it's like, I think that's the science.
It's not. I don't think it's full muscle tear either.
Yeah,
because bodybuilding, like I'd imagine doing 20 reps, having a minute break, because the strongmen do 2 reps, have like a 5-minute break.
Yep.
So the bodybuilders, they do high reps, short breaks. That would tear the muscle.
Hypertrophy. Yeah. True. More muscle tears.
I wouldn't imagine too much muscle tear in strongmen.
But I wonder where the strength is actually coming from then. Like what is being stronger?
Bro.
Hey.
Oh yeah.
No, but in terms of when they're working at a gym, it must have something to do with muscle growth. But it's like I think it must have something to do with like dense muscle growth.
Yeah.
It's like if you're not having that extreme, like I guess you're not tearing the muscle as much, but I guess you're just lifting more weight in total because you're able to do more reps at a higher weight range. So it's like I don't know. That's a question that I've had actually. Yeah. So like.
Interesting, eh? But I couldn't care less about strength, to be honest with you.
You just want to look bigger.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, what difference does it really make? Like, I'm not a tradie. I'm not, planning on doing any strength competitions or anything like that. So, because I've got a mate who's hyper strong,
Yeah.
but there's just no need for it. I mean, we
Yeah,
went
you
bowling
give him the
last
jar, though,
night
when
and
you
he
need
could
it.
just bowl a bit quicker than me, but I beat him. So it's like, well, what use is this, bud?
Yeah. I think there's like my goal is is probably less physique oriented, more on being strong. But I think it's just because I'm happy with my physique. It's
Right.
I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't want to be a super muscular behemoth.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather be in good shape and just become stronger. And where strength comes down to is just it's just functionally a nicer feeling to be strong.
True.
Like you can never attribute it to a specific thing. It's like saying why go for runs when you never need it. It's like, yeah, you don't need it. You're not living in a hunter-gatherer society where physicality is life or death, but it still matters. I think being a strong person it's a good feeling to be in the top 5% of people strength-wise, But at the same time, I think it's where our goals are oriented. Like you're in a bulking phase right now. Like you want to gain mass, and it's like it makes, and as you gain mass, you're going to get stronger anyway. It's like, I don't think they're quite.
We have the same goal really without vocalizing it.
No, that's right.
Like me bulking is going to gain strength, and you're specifically aiming to gain strength. We're both going to reach the point where we will gain strength.
No, you're right.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, fuck, 2 hours and 43 minutes.
Jesus Christ, I feel like I'd keep fucking going all day to be completely
It's good,
honest.
It's good fun. We'll stop it here and then we'll do another one maybe.
I reckon. Let's do
Sweet.
it. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
No worries,
dude, I
Will.
just want to say, like, I felt this recently. Having a conversation, a debate specifically, and disagreeing and then posting that is like posting this podcast and saying what you truly feel. It's like having a bunch of piranhas beneath your feet, and like, I don't know, it's just, it's intimidating. Like there's just a bunch of hyenas at your feet, bloody waiting to snap you up at any wrong thing you say.
100%.
But I appreciate people coming on and just being honest and transparent. And we had disagreements today, and it was mind-opening, insightful, all of the above. So thanks for that.
No problems at all. Thanks for having me. It was a great opportunity. And I think, again, I had that in my mind as well. I'm thinking, like, I do not want to get the Addy Day podcast cancelled today. but at the same time, like, whatever. I think transparency is good. And let's just say what we think. And I think we've got a lot more that we disagree about. I think, honestly, like, in this conversation, we kind of focused on the stuff that we had similar thoughts with. Like, and I think maybe another conversation where we really pinpoint the stuff that we disagree about would be awesome. Like,
Great.
We could challenge each other on a few things, and we'll go from there.
All right.
Thanks,
Atish.
perfect. Thanks, dude.